Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, March 21st, 2022. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Adolph Reed, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Pennsylvania, author of his latest, The South, Jim Crow, and its Afterlives. Meanwhile, confirmation hearings for Ketanji Brown Jackson begin today and are in fact underway at this very moment in the wake of a report that Clarence Thomas is hospitalized with an infection but is recovering. Missed it by that much. Ukraine rejects Russian demand for surrender in Mariupol. Biden warns China of consequences if it aids Russian invasion. Speaking of which, Biden to visit Poland now as part of his European tour. A witness claims that Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, was one of the planners to have the rally marches march upon the Capitol. Mail-in ballot rejection surge in Texas with, surprise, surprise, a racial gap. It's been 70 degrees warmer than normal in Antarctica. 70 degrees warmer than normal in Antarctica. And scientists are flabbergasted. 1 dead, 27 wounded in a shooting at an Arkansas car show. AstraZeneca says they have a treatment for Omicron subvariants. And lastly, 500 steelworkers at a Chevron California refinery are preparing to strike. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. We've been watching the opening speeches, whines in some instance, of the Supreme Court hearings. Joining me, of course, Emma Vigeland.
Hello.
Emma.
And by whines, you mean like the way that Lindsey Graham was whining like a baby, as opposed to, it's a party. I'm drinking wine at the confirmation hearings. That might be better.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what they have underneath their desks, in terms of like what they do before they head in. But yes, in fact, we have one of those wines from Lindsey Graham right now. Here is Lindsey Graham in his opening statements, addressing Ketanji Brown Jackson, telling her what this hearing's not going to be.
Before they shut down the place, so that's off to a good start. Most of us couldn't go back to our offices during Kavanaugh without getting spit on. Hope that doesn't happen to y'all. I don't think it will. As to the historic nature of...
Pause it for 1 second.
Did someone spit on Lindsey Graham? Did I miss that news story?
That was, well, most of us. And by most of us, he means none of us. This has always been like the classic story that is often more apocryphal, right? Now, we were spit on our way back to our offices for supporting Kavanaugh, just because it was quite clear he was lying through his teeth.
Like they were returning from Saigon or something.
Exactly.
I've been spit on. I got spit on in the Trump rally. I'm not going to shoehorn it into
You should-
every conversation.
It's a marketing opportunity, Emma.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I want to be clear about something about the
How do
Kavanaugh
I
thing.
commodify it? How do I get an NFT of me getting spit on?
I don't even know what that would be, but I'm sure somebody will oblige.
Someone do it.
I just want to be clear about something with Kavanaugh. We can't know for absolute certainty about the allegations against Kavanaugh in terms of the sexual assault that he was accused of. But if any human being above the age of, I don't know, pick it, 16, thinks that he was telling the truth when he talked about what he had written in his yearbook about that woman, and that was supposedly his friend, that I can't remember what it was, and it's not even really important, but it was quite clear, some type of reference to,
was it the booth thing?
Partying,
I can't even remember.
yeah.
it was some reference to, like, when they were in high school, that maybe she had, fooled around or had sex with,
Renata Alumnius.
Yes. All these people who had fooled around, that's a euphemism, with a specific woman. Look, high school kids, with all due respect to those who are watching and to the ones I have at home, it can be idiots. But the point is not whether a high school kid can be an idiot. It's whether a grown man or woman, for that matter, can own it and not lie in front of a committee that's determining whether they should be one of 9 people who have an inordinate amount of power over our society.
No, he went the opposite direction. He went into
full on denial. But the bizarre thing about that moment,
appealed to Republicans, by the way.
The stunning thing about that moment was there couldn't have been a single human being in that room, including his wife, including every person who sat on that committee, who didn't know that he was lying. And yet everybody pretended like it wasn't. And that was that for me was one of the most disturbing moments, because it became clear that they were going to adopt the Donald Trump, MO, which is not to say that ideologically or anything else or a lot of other things that, Donald Trump was just a natural progression of the Republican Party. But this was the first moment where I just saw, like, we're going to take a complete and blatant lie, and we're going to be vociferous about it in supporting it. Indignant
and just furious that you would even ask this of me, especially what was so jarring too about that, if people remember, was in the wake of Christine Blasey Ford's incredibly powerful testimony. Again, we can never know for sure, as you say, but she was consistent. Her therapist notes were consistent, and she was brave. And like, then the U.S. Senate sided with the indignant one.
Right. And the indignant about something that one moment, everybody knew he was lying.
What's that thing from the Iraq War era where it's like, we create our own reality?
They said, you guys are part of the reality-based community.
Right.
And
we're just gonna opt out of that.
We opt out. We create our own. All right, continue with Lindsey Graham, because it was very hard for him. This is a wonderful opportunity for me to talk about how oppressed I am.
This is going to be about your philosophy. The bottom line here is, when it is about philosophy, when it's somebody of color on our side, it's about we're all racist if we ask hard questions. It's not going to fly with us. We're used to it by now, at least I am. So it's not going to matter a bit to any of us. We're going to ask you what we think you need to be asked. And Senator Hawley, you need to ask her about her record as a district court judge. You should. I hope you do. And we'll see what she says. Very fair game. Now, President Biden had a choice here, and he has every right to make it. Elections have consequences. He had many qualified African-American women to choose from. He chose you. Michelle Childs, a district court judge from South Carolina, supported by Jim Clyburn. That was in the mix. I think it came down to about 2, 3, 4 people. Don't know for sure, but that's what the press was reporting. And when it came to Judge Childs, This Arabella group's in our White House. You talk about dark money, you may be onto something. This Arabella group is funded by Soros and some other liberal billionaire. They got so many groups within their group, I can't name them all now, but they basically said, if you pick Childs, you may have a primary opponent. The FL-CIO said,
Pause
Justice.
for 1 second. You know, one of the key elements of dark money is that
You can't identify it.
you
on
can't
the spot.
identify where it comes from. Now, apparently, he's been able to identify the group and who funds it and all of it. So,
and their demands. And he's like, before we get past it, when he's teeing up Hawley there, over the weekend, Hawley made some comments about how Ketanji Brown Jackson is.
We're going to go through that.
Okay,
we got to. We
is
will.
supportive of sex offenders, but it's just like he's like making
Fair
sure
game.
he gets his QAnon campaign speech in, and just priming him for that to happen. So.
Judge Childs was a union buster. The attacks from the left against Judge Childs was really pretty vicious, to be honest with you.
Oh.
So you say, Judge Jackson, you don't have any judicial philosophy per se. Well, somebody on the left believes you do. Or they wouldn't have spent the money they spent to have you in this chair. So we're going to find out how that statement holds up over time. A viewer's guide to this hearing. She will be asked about her sentencing practices as a district court judge, and she'll have a chance to explain her reasoning, and you can make up for yourself what this means, but it's good to be asked. About her legal views, I'll ask her about the law of armed conflict and her view of the law of armed conflict. The fact that you represent Gitmo detainees is not a problem with me. Everybody deserves a lawyer. You're doing the country a great service when you defend the most unpopular people. But I do want to know about your amicus briefs after you're no longer a defense counsel weighing into the Supreme Court about how they decide law of war issues. That matters a lot to me. I think it does matter that the groups that came to your aid at the expense of Judge Childs, how did that happen and why were they doing what they were doing? What is it about your nomination that the most liberal people under the umbrella of Arabella threw in their money, their time, their support, and threatened Joe Biden if he...
Listen, I have a prediction here. Well, one, obviously, he's already said why they didn't, they came out against Childs, because she was a union buster. He's answered his own question, but I am going to make one of my famous predictions, and that is, you're going to hear the words Arabella so much in the future that you're going to get nauseous how many times you see it. It's going to be like, it's going to be the new boogeyman for a period of time. Yeah, exactly. So be prepared, ladies and gentlemen.
And right. So like so he's gonna hang his hat on, like, why didn't you pick my guy, my guy, basically my judge, which is, silly. But there were groups that were in favor of Childs versus Ketanji Brown Jackson because she's more conservative. So there we go. As you say, that he answered his own question.
All right, we're going to take a break and do some ads in a moment, and hopefully when we come back from break after the ads, we'll have Professor Reed. First, we're in the new year. I just got saved by this stuff the other day. I went out with a friend I haven't seen in about 15 years, and we got a little bit carried away. In terms of the drinking. Of course, I immediately, when I come home, it's like I've trained my mind now.
Liquid IV. 1
stick of liquid IV, 16 ounces of water, hydrates faster and more efficiently than water alone. And in the morning, I didn't feel 100%, but I did not feel around 22% where I anticipated. Liquid IV has incredible hydration flavors like watermelon, lemon, lime, strawberry, pina colada, and more. Liquid IV contains 5 essential vitamins: B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C. With Liquid IV, you get 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sport drinks. Liquid IV is made with premium ingredients and is non-GMO. It is free from gluten, free from dairy, free from soy. has this thing called the science of cellular transport technology. Basically, it just means that you get more absorption in your body of the water and other ingredients into the bloodstream. Liquid IV is on a mission to change the world. The company has donated over 19 million servings globally. Apparently, this year is going to be the highest airline travel since 2019. And also, liquid IV is great when you're flying around. You get dehydrated up there. Take a couple of packets with you on your road trip, on your wherever you're going. I guess I don't know, where do people go places anymore? I have no idea. But liquid IV, one of the staples around the office here. We got multiple flavors. I like I'm really like, I have not gotten off the tangerine. I'm still on that big time. Yeah. But the matcha, my substitute for coffee at times. So check it out. Grab Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you go 25% off. When you go to liquidiv.com, use the code MajorityRep at checkout. It's 25% off anything when you order, and use the promo code MajorityRep at liquidiv.com. Experience better hydration today at liquidiv.com. Promo code MajorityRep. Also, we got a new sponsor, and I actually I never really contemplated outdoor furniture, right? Like, I go out, I have a friend who has a outdoor space in Brooklyn, which is fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Luxury.
Yes, it is. And that's why, like, one of the few friends I maintained through the years, so that I get to do that. 93% of life apparently spent indoors. So when you finally get a moment to go out in the fresh air, you got to make it count. The warm weather has arrived. I was sitting out there, and for the first time, I noticed what do you call it?
The setup?
Yeah. The outdoor furniture, I guess. I never really contemplated it, but it makes a big difference when you got really nice outdoor furniture. Outer is an innovative, high-quality outdoor furniture designed to look and feel great. You can create your own backyard resort with everything from teak chairs to fire pit tables. Both the teak chairs and the fire pit tables, that would be my fantasy, to have like an outdoor space with teak chairs and a fire pit. But I don't have outdoor space in Brooklyn. That's not. Every outer piece is made from sustainable materials. It comes with patented built-in cover for effortless protection, all for less than you pay at a big box store. And outer furniture comes with best-in-class warranties. They have 10 years for their chic aluminum line and a 2-week trial with free returns. That's awesome. See the difference at liveouter.com/majority. Plus, for a limited time, you get $300 off and free shipping. This is Outer's best offer anywhere, only available to podcast listeners. And only for a limited time, get $300 off and free shipping at liveouter, LIVEOUTER, liveouter.com/majority. liveouter.com/majority. Terms and conditions apply, as always. And as always, we'll put that link in our podcast and YouTube description. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Adolph Reed, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Pennsylvania, author of The South, Jim Crow and Its Afterlives. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland. I couldn't even get my own name out. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. I'd like to welcome back to the show after too long of a time, Professor Adolph Reed. He is a professor emeritus of political science at the University of Pennsylvania, author of The South, Jim Crow and Its Afterlives. Professor Reed, welcome back to the program.
Oh, well, yeah, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
So now I was trying to figure out how to characterize your book, and I came up with autoethnography. And it is basically your, stories of your experience living under Jim Crow, and then making observations and arguments surrounding that in terms of how it functioned, expressing that sort of daily life under Jim Crow. I want to start with something that's fairly remedial for folks.
Okay.
Will you describe for us, like, what is, when we say Jim Crow, this is coming out of Reconstruction, and what are we talking about?
Well, it's really even a little later than Reconstruction. I mean, I define it really, pardon me, my allergies are killing me, as the social order based on codified racial subordination and the white supremacy that took shape in most of the South after the defeat of the populist insurgency in the early 1890s. Because not even racial segregation carried the kind of systemic meanings prior to, say, 1890 that it did after. If you take, for instance, segregation in public transportation, Charles Lofgren in a book called The Plessy Case is really does really great work on this. That between emancipation and the Plessy Case, states and localities across the South, in some places, imposed segregation laws and then got rid of them and reimposed them. In some places they didn't have them. In some places they didn't have them, and then imposed them and then got rid of them. In some places they applied to trolleys, but not to steamboats. But some places vice versa. So the regime of racial segregation, as we typically think of it, didn't become consolidated as a political or as a politically significant thing for whites or blacks, on a large scale, till the 1890s. So I would say, I would delimit the Jim Crow era basically as having formed and consolidated someplace between 1890 and the World War I, depending on where you were, and having begun to break down indirectly after World War II, and at the back of it, as I pointed, or the back of it, as I pointed out often, was broken by the time I was 18 years old, 1965.
We were trying to figure out who it was that we interviewed, who had talked about essentially the coups that took place during Reconstruction in South Carolina as a function of white plantation owners realizing that they could not motivate Appalachians enough over race to break up the populists and I guess forming a political alliance with essentially newly freemen, and that they ended up resorting to violence there. Is it your sense that to the extent that it begins to congeal, that Jim Crow laws were a function of that? I mean, I feel like that's a big part of your argument, is that it shows it is not that the racial elements of it in terms of intent or motivation were second order for an agenda that sort of precedes it.
Oh yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're probably thinking about North Carolina instead of South Carolina, because in North Carolina, in the midst of pushback against populism, a statewide populist Republican fusion government, what was elected in 1894 and then re-elected by bigger margins in 1896, and that's what prompted the putsch led by the Democratic Party in 1898, when a few years later, former Governor Aycock commented that that we need the strength that comes from thinking all alike, and what that meant, of course, was all white people, and what that also meant was what was the Democratic Party, which he also said the Democratic Party alone is sufficient to meet our needs. And the fact is, and look, I know for most people in this country, what happened before Martin Luther King, or the image of Martin Luther King, was a kind of indistinguishable blur of the bad old-timey times, right? From slavery to whatever came after slavery, which some people argued was worse than slavery. But I think it's more useful for us to think of the 30 years between, or say the 30 years after emancipation in 1865, as kind of a period of flux, or even, if you will, kind of an interregnum, right, between two orders, on which there was political contestation at the grassroots level, from grassroots level up, about what the reconstructed South was going to be, what the status of blacks who are now technically citizens in Southern political economy and Southern life was going to be. And it's also the case that the planter merchant capitalist class seemed, in retrospect, irrationally fearful of that possibility that you mentioned, right? That broken working class whites and blacks would align to overthrow them. And if we think about how what the upper class sense of being overthrown is today, the stakes are pretty low, right? But just as they are now, right? It was just as say the likes of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk think that having to pay taxes is like going on a forced march to Treblinka,
Right.
Right. But they were kind of like that then too. So in addition to what happened in North Carolina in the mid 1890s, in Virginia in 1879, a similar kind of coalition was elected statewide and elected at the leadership, ironically, or maybe not, of a former Confederate general named Mahone, took state power for a while in Virginia and passed a bunch of downwardly redistributive laws. But even beyond that, William H. Freeling's book, South Against the South, chronicles, the almost 300,000 white Southerners who didn't support the Confederacy, and 100,000 or more who actively fought for the Union against secession. And the wonderful historian Victoria Bynum study what I did a book on that topic too. But in addition, she did the study of the Free State of Jones, which Gary Ross turned into a very much underappreciated film, but about a county in Mississippi, of all places, that seceded from the Confederacy, and where like an interracial army of white farmers and black runaways fought alongside the Union against the Confederacy. So it's not exactly that the governing class fears of this potential alliance were irrational. It's only from the later perspective, after two or three generations of imposition of solid South ideology, that we might think that that all white people thought the same thing, basically. But the fact was that they and the populist insurgency just brought home to them that they really needed to do something about this once and for all. And the last thing I'll say about this is that it's noteworthy that disfranchisement happened after the defeat of populism. And not only 90% plus of all blacks were disfranchised, but depending on where you were, between a quarter to a third of whites were also disfranchised. And the result of it was that the center of gravity of Southern politics shifted sharply to reflect the interests of the ruling class, right, or the capitalist and plantation upper class. And when people ask, and this is the last thing I'll say, but when people seek for reasons that say trade unionism is so much weaker in the South than it is elsewhere. I mean, American academics tend to adduce culturalist explanations, right? So stuff like something about Southern culture or endemic commitment to white supremacy or whatever. Fact is, you don't need to look any farther than disfranchisement because after the center of gravity of the Southern electorate shifted sharply toward the propertied classes, there was no space for the emergence of a governor, John Altgeld, for instance, like in Illinois, who supported the Haymarket, prisoners, right, like against the owners, right, or like other governors and mayors and councils who were pro-labor and supported trade unionism. Because in the South, like every level of government was totally committed to and owned by the ownership class. So guess what happens?
So the disenfranchisement that we saw through, let's say, literacy tests or whatnot,
right,
or poll taxes, they are aimed. They disenfranchise Black people writ large, and then basically poor whites who are and this is almost like a rear guard action to sort of shut the door once they're in power. I mean,
right. No, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
We sort of have a contemporary model for this.
Right.
People are wondering. I mean, we're literally watching this. I feel like in real time. This is
right.
They get into they have the Supreme Court and
right.
That door gets shut again. Make sure that this gets locked in.
Right. Well, and look, I mean, that's one of the differences between right and left in this country at this point, right? At least, or what I often refer to now as whatever that thing is that occupies a cultural space that a left would occupy in the U.S. if there were one, right? Right. Because the right has a vision that they're mobilizing around, and they want to impose it, and they want to make the world in their image, where the left has no vision. So we don't think to do stuff like that. But I want to say one thing about the disfranchisement thing too, or disfranchisement comparison too, if you don't mind. And it's this, like, and I've been hammering on this point in my classes for a while, and I think it's useful, for us all, to reflect on it for a moment or two. That disfranchisement in 2020, much like disfranchisement in 1895, was a means to an end. And certainly it was part of the fabric of white supremacy, or the restoration of absolute governing class power under the sign of white supremacy at the end of the 19th century. But if Blacks had voted dependably Democratic by some percentage, not even a majority necessarily, then the white supremacists or the reimposition of absolute class power under the sign of white supremacy would probably have happened anyway, but it's less likely that disfranchisement would have been one of its principal weapons, right? And by the same token now, and I just wrote something about this with respect to Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina. She's gotten quite huffy when people in South Carolina have suggested that there's a racial motive that underlies their attempts to purify the electorate and to suppress voting. And I'm sure that she's sincere, at least in the sense that people believe what they need to believe to do what they need to get done. But she could be sincere in another more plausible sense too, but in that it's easy to see that now, and a lot of Republicans would say this themselves, including Haley, she's shown it, that if more Black people voted Republican, disfranchisement wouldn't, or that kind of disfranchisement, racialized disfranchisement, wouldn't necessarily be the mechanism of choice to close the door and to lock in class power now. So what's my point there? Well, my point there is that as I said about the Jim Crow South, while on one level, obviously and clearly, indisputably, race was and racism was what drove the Jim Crow order, but on another level, it really wasn't about race at all.
Okay, so if I understand you, it's that the disenfranchisement would not be the arrow if Black people voted for Republicans. Now they're not going to, in the numbers that they want, but the fact that it's really just like, how do we maintain power? And this is the low hanging fruit. It is
right. No, that's right.
And it's also and I want to actually get into some of the aspects of the book, but in a moment. But this is sort of, I guess, surrounds it too. I mean, I just read it's also sort of that utility is also there to fight that disenfranchisement. In other words, I just read, I have a headline that in Texas, where they've instituted this sort of mail-in ballot, they've changed the laws, and the spoiled vote tally has gone from like 1% to like 30%.
Right.
And they're also finding a racial gap here.
Right.
And that headline, without the racial gap, it doesn't seem to gain as much traction as the one with the racial gap. But it's still equally anti-democratic.
Right.
Small
right.
d,
That's right.
and it's still extremely problematic, and it's still going to empower the Republicans in their agenda. But part of it is that, like, we didn't have a 1965 for white people. Women had their vote, 20, 30, 40 years earlier. And so it doesn't have the same resonance to just say, like, hey, wait a second, there's clearly voter disenfranchisement here.
Right.
But without the sort of racial element, it doesn't resonate in the same way. And it's just sort of like, this is just the easiest way for them to do it. I mean, I think that guy, there was a guy caught on camera by, I think, like the Daily Show, a North Carolina official who's like, yeah, well, of course we did that because we didn't want the Black people to vote. And it's because, they're Democrats.
Right. Oh, but yeah, in fact, there's one of the morons, like in North Carolina, actually wrote to the Justice Department and asked for a list of precincts where Blacks predominated, and then they produced a redistricting plan that disfranchised all those precincts. So it was so transparent there. It's too stupid to live, basically. But I see where you're going with this. And look, I mean, this is part of the catch-22, man. I agree. In the midst of the street fight, you pick up whatever's around that you can use, right? But again, this takes us back to the problem that I mentioned at the beginning, that the right has some place that they're trying to go. So they will make use of the low-hanging fruit, but they'll connect that in one way or another, in whatever ways, mainly through the improvisational dynamics of coalition formation. They'll connect that to this strategy for getting to where they want to get ultimately, right? And you put your thumb on the problem too, that the only language that we have legally to protest inequality is a language based on what I've described as categories of ascriptive difference, like categories based on what you supposedly are instead of what you do. So race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. And that kind of feeds the disparitarian understanding of what inequality is, right? But that all depends on, or the success of that approach depends not on building a broad political alliance to challenge for power, but it depends on appellants having the ear of the sympathetic voices in the ruling class, in the courts and Congress or whatever, who can make things happen, outside of a majoritarian context. And we can't, we haven't been able to depend on that for 30 years, right? And we certainly can't now. And that's why I think that part of what has to happen, and this is what, pardon the shameless plug, but our podcast, classmatters.org, or the Class Matters podcast, is focused on, our tagline is, what would the country look like if it were governed by and for the working class? And we're trying to find ways to start, getting around the identitarian, roadblocks, and sort of catching working people before they get drawn into Trumpism, basically. And that's what we've got to do.
Yeah. Do you feel like, the flattening, I guess, of those power dynamics exacerbates or even worsens, some of the ways that the right has been able to make gains with voter suppression, like in this current day? I know that the history of that might be part of, why it's such an uphill battle right now.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. That's what do you mean by flattening of the power dynamics?
Yeah, just like making it, more only about anti-racism.
Oh, yeah.
The class, right?
Yeah. I think absolutely. And in fact, a good friend and colleague of mine in South Carolina, and I did an article. He did most of the work actually a few years ago on this. After working in South Carolina for a long time and noticing that Democrats and Republicans, black and white, are equally committed to race being the central fault line for political differentiation in the state. My colleague, the Professor Willie Leggett, who, by the way, like if there were a Nobel Prize for apothegms, he would have won it for saying a few years ago that the only thing that hasn't changed about black politics since 1965 is how we think about it. And he's absolutely correct about that. But like he went back to V.O. Key's classic study of Southern politics in 1949 called Southern Politics in State and Nation, and found the pages where Key describes the role that race played in South Carolina politics in 1949. And what we figured out was with a very small handful of individual word changes, right? In those passages, you could say just about the same thing about South Carolina race in South Carolina politics now, that it's used as what the Field Sisters call the surface camouflage to conceal the political, economic, and class dynamics that are really driving driving the society. And I think that's true nationally. And, like for something else I was just trying to work on, I was starting to find out that apparently the Census Bureau stopped keeping records on labor force participation by race at some point before 2020. So it's just all about, and even when you look at local economic data, under the economy, what you see is like businesses, but you got to do some extra digging around to find out anything about employment. So this is like part of a bipartisan program, basically, to make the working class disappear. It's also part of the contemporary anti-racist program, right? Since 2016, the black chattering class and as best exemplified by Joanne Reed, like on MSNBC, has been insisting that working class is a euphemism for white racist, which means, among other things, you can't be black and be in a working class. You can only be black and to the extent that the so-called black agenda is set by the investor class. Well, we kind of see how that plays out, don't we? Right. That's where the wealth gap comes from. When, despite the fact that we know that 3/4 of so-called black wealth is held by the 10% or the richest 10% of black people, and 3/4 of so-called white wealth is held by the is held by the richest 10% of white people, and the bottom half of blacks and whites have no wealth whatsoever, and 96% of black wealth is held by the richest 20% of black people. So what does narrowing the wealth gap do for anybody who has to work for a living? So yeah, like it's from all around us, right? And that's the reason that my colleagues and I have been describing anti-racist discourse as a species of neoliberalism at this point.
I mean, it's interesting. The I don't know if it's the irony, but and it's certainly not a coincidence, maybe. But when you talk about Joy Reid or any folks who are using, who perceive the working class as just white supremacists, it excludes black working class people. It also happens on the other side, I think, where people are arguing, like, you have some people who are arguing Democrats need to appeal more to the working class.
Right.
Some of those people are basically just also, it seems to me, erasing black working class people.
Right.
I mean,
right.
it's sort of, it's a project that really brings people together, I guess.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, that's like a throwback. That's a very important point too, Sam. And that's like a throwback to that moment at the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, when in the earlier incarnation of Clintonism, right, a chunk of the driving line was that the Democrats needed to get away from from their association with minorities, labor, and feminists, right? And this is just another version of the same thing. So yeah, there's a Scylla and a Charybdis out there, and we have to navigate very carefully through the strait between them.
Well, I mean, just because you did say identitarian roadblocks, and is that what you mean there? That this is just like it is, it's a distraction, or it's a misdirection on some level, and we can't address the underlying sort of, or we can't even see necessarily the underlying dynamic if we because we're making some type of category error, I guess, in terms of like what is driving.
Yes, I would say that. And I would also say that burned into my brain is the image of, God, what's his name? Van Jones falling to his knees and weeping when he got that $100 million check from Jeff Bezos, right? I mean, this is a class program, right? It's a class politics that's dressed up as a race politics, which is what race politics always is. It was late 19th century white supremacy was a class politics dressed up as a race politics. Early 21st century anti-racist politics is a different kind of class politics dressed up as a different kind of race politics.
So where does, and
I like how we're naming names on the show today.
Oh, well, yeah, it's all right. I mean, like I distinctly
I'm
remember,
old. That's what old people do. So I'm just channeling my grandmother.
Van Jones once. I remember this very distinctly because I did it in my basement. It was just when this was an audio show only. And he had just spoken at Netroots Nation. This must have been 10 years ago or 8 years ago. And was developing he wanted to create a group to fight like the Tea Party. He was sort of like in a stage where he was challenging Glenn Beck. And I remember distinctly asking him, like, okay, so who's the enemy here? Like, I mean, who is doing, there is no enemy, I think is what he said. And I was just like, wait, what? How do you, what? This is all just sort of like the weather? Like, I don't understand.
Well, I tell you what, man, like when I worked in Manhattan and lived partly in New Haven, every day on the Metro North in Stamford, or between Stamford and Greenwich, I would ride past on a train the world headquarters of WWE, the World Wrestling Enterprise, and that's what that politics is to me. But that's what Van Jones, debating what Glenn Beck is basically. It's theater.
Well, but let me speak in defense of WWE.
Well, in fact, they should have debated in Jello.
That's part of, well, but frankly, that's part of what we do here is partly that element. But like at the very least, do it well. in my estimation. Like have some, there has to be some value to it. If you're not, he's not, all he's doing is fighting Glenn Beck. He's not fighting what Glenn Beck stands for is problematic. That was my issue with it. Like, I hear you. I don't mind the theater. I do also remember one time I was on a program where I was sitting next to a guy who I only knew him as a fundraiser for Obama. And we got into a big argument about the estate tax. And he was saying like the estate tax is hindering intergenerational wealth transfer.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And we got into like this big protracted argument that happened. And he's like, the Congressional Black Caucus supports it. And we're arguing. And I'm like, I don't care who supports it. It's ridiculous. We're arguing through the commercial break. And it wasn't until afterwards when I got home that I Googled the guy and found out that he was like number 1 or 2, like wealthiest black men in the entire country. Like he was worried about his kids getting the full, like, you know, like they're going to lose out on, they're only going to get like 30 or 50 million each. And, you know, if these taxes go through. And I was just like, wow. All right. Well, so you write that there's like almost like 2 opposite misunderstandings of Jim Crow to get back into this, because this is, what were they or what are they?
Well, yeah, one is the happy-faced one, right? That it solved all of our problems, and there's no more inequality, or that's unjust anymore, right?
The end of Jim Crow. Okay.
Oh yeah, sorry, right. And the other is that the victories didn't amount to anything, right? That they didn't mean anything. And I've been hearing the latter line pop up, especially among young people, because, you know, young people don't know anything, but they think they know a whole lot, you know, for 30 years now. And my knee-jerk reaction has always been, God, I wish I had a Wayback Machine and I could drop you like in the Mississippi Delta in 1950 and then come back 6 weeks later and pick you up, right? So there's that kind of misunderstanding. And the other misunderstanding, I guess, is more, or is either more naive or naive in a different way, but it stems partly from a fundamental misunderstanding of the roots of inequality, even those inequalities that manifest as racial, right? And my friend, the historian Barbara Jean Fields, has often said that for a long time now, the way that people in this country talk about slavery or Jim Crow, one would think that the point was to produce racism, right? Not, you know, cotton and rice and sugarcane, right? So we've kind of inverted the understanding of the relation between racial bigotry and the social order out of which racial bigotry emerges and makes sense. And I think one of the things I've tried to convey in the book is that it is that race is an ideology. It's not a thing, of course. It's historically specific. It comes into existence in certain historical moments and political economic contexts. And while the word stays pretty much the same, the content that attaches to the word changes, right, over time. And race or racism fundamentally cannot cause anything because they're abstract ideas that don't have the capacity to make anything happen, right? What the ideologies appeal to people because they emerge out of a sort of common sense cauldron, right? But such that you look around and see who is positioned where, in the social hierarchy, and race is a taxonomic discourse that provides a natural seeming explanation for why who is wherever they are should be there, right? It's supposed to be there. And like all such ideologies, it gains currency and becomes dominant when it comports with the sensibilities of powerful interests right in the society who want to propagate it and use it.
If racism did not provide the desired outcome by wealthy people, they would move on to something else.
Totally.
Totally. And okay, so here's my a dilemma, and then I'm going to bring it back to Jim Crow.
Oh yeah, sure.
But here's, so I subscribe to that notion. And in some ways, I think everybody, a lot of anti-racists do too, and don't necessarily realize. I mean, because you always hear like, nobody's born racist. You're taught to be racist.
Right.
Well, if that's the case, the question is like, why? And and if it's not endemic, the question is like, why are you being taught to be racist? And it is, it may on the micro level be like, well, it's a tradition in our family. We like to be racist, but somebody was taught to be racist, and it was used as a tool. But does that mean? But it doesn't necessarily follow that if racism is taught to be a tool, that you can bypass the implications of that belief system that has now been reproduced for the benefit of maintaining a power dynamic that has to do with money and class.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily follow that you can bypass that and just deal directly with power in terms of money and class. Or do you need to sort of like go back in, like almost like, I turn my shirt inside out. I gotta turn it back inside in before I can put it on.
Well, I know that's what a lot of anti-racist educators and like others say, a lot of anti-racist activists, what somebody I read not that long ago said that, our job is as progressive activists or as leftists is to win white people to the understanding of how they've messed over black people. And that's, but the question that you ask really gets down to an organizing question, right? And I think that you kind of split the difference between the two approaches that you suggest, right? That is that to build a broad alliance, right? Well, it's like trying to organize a shop, basically, right? That you start out from the issues and concerns that people have in common, right? And through the course of struggling to advance those issues and concerns, both in a positive sense and of course in a negative one too, then you build the kinds of solidarities that make it easier to confront directly the vestiges or the more than vestiges, the actual bigoted sensibilities that individual people have. And I mean, a couple things about that. One is that that's an approach that doesn't begin from the assumption that to build a movement, you got to turn people into saints first, basically. As I've often said, it's not like we're trying to pledge a frat here, right? Or to rush a frat, like we're trying to, so we don't need everybody to believe the same thing coming in, right? The point is that through the course of building and broadening the struggle, people come to see things differently. And like, this is the petty comparison, I suppose. Some people might think it's kind of romantic, but I mentioned this at least once or twice in the book, that at this point, right, for the last 30 years, right, I have noticed, I've sometimes registered, when I see interracial groups of people out in the South, friends, coworkers, neighbors, whatever, having drinks at a TGI Fridays or a softball game together. I recall that this is a level of sort of almost trivial but mundane interaction that would not have been possible as early or as late as 1960, at least. And that was partly the point of Jim Crow. Like when we, started working and organizing campaign in South Carolina in 2006, we spent a lot of time working flea markets, which are, working class shopping malls, basically. And we were struck right away at how much evidence there was of current and former, like interracial coupling, right, but in that place, I mean, what I often mention is one woman, like a grandmother, a white grandmother who looked like she was straight out of the uprising of '34, sitting with her little mixed race black grandbaby, and much greater copious evidence all up and down the working class. And I was reminded that Pitchfork, Ben Tillman, and Cole Blees and those guys knew what they were doing, because they understood that when people are in common circumstances, it's as likely that they will align, which is, after all, the thing they'd been frightened to death of since 1865. It's more likely that they'll align on their own than not. So the focal point of politics comes to center on making sure that they don't align, and that's what's coming from the right now too.
So okay, and when you put it in the context of organizing, and you in a shop, it makes a lot of sense to me, right? You don't come in and highlight any the differences. You highlight shared experiences that everybody's having in there, and allow those shared experiences to overcome any type of prejudice or predispositions or racial animus or whatever it is over time. But in terms of like sort of the 20,000 foot type of thing, like where it's not from as an organizing, let's say, tactic, but in terms of a I guess like a sort of broader intellectual fight to influence maybe marginally, like legislation or regulation that will set up, make it easier for you to walk into that shop as like you say, you're in a street fight, you pick up the first thing you see. How is it problematic on that level, right? Like, I mean, how is it problematic? I mean, frankly, like when you're talking about like organizing a shop, how is it problematic that like a New York Times op-ed writer or whomever, is obscuring this dynamic, at least in that way, as or obscuring really what you would do tactically or material, like in terms of what you do, as opposed to like the thoughts associated.
Well, that's important too, Sam. I mean, I'll say a couple things. One is I do see that Charles Blow gives the Boogaloo Boys bulletin board material at least once every other week, so that doesn't help us, right? But so I think we're at a point now. Well, the thing is, we got to be able to do both things at the same time. And the problem with whatever that blob is that occupies the cultural space, et cetera, is that it doesn't do that, and it hasn't done that. So much of what is represented as left politics is purely performative and frankly has a Potemkin quality, right? Like it's done to affect the cable news cycle, right? Now, much more than it's done, to try to generate a base and to move people. And there's often a career imperative that's involved as well, right? I mean, just look at the history of Black Lives Matter, for instance, which shouldn't have been that hard to see. But here's the thing. So like last summer, I published an article called "The Whole Country is a Reichstag" in a non-site. And part of my argument there is that we may well have reached a point at which neoliberalism is no longer capable of delivering enough for enough of the population to sustain its legitimacy as a nominally democratic order. And in that case, what happens is like, so when I go for a walk here, there's like a T intersection about 3 blocks from my apartment. So I think about it every day. That we may well be at the political equivalent of a T intersection, where there's only 2 directions to go. One is right, and that's toward authoritarianism, and the other is at least in a kind of New Dealish social, democratic sensibility that would encourage toward a public good understanding of government. And one of the things that's definitely come through in our work, but I think it comes through from all the anti-vax stuff too, is that working people in this country have pretty much seem to have lost faith in the idea the government can do anything decent for them. And if we don't begin to restore that, right, then it doesn't matter how the public interest groups might get Congress to move or to shift the playing field like 2 decimal points to the right in our direction, right? Because the right's still going to win the game ultimately. And so that's why I say we've got to be able to do both things at the same time. You've got to be able to like understand and see. This is why I thought I could never vote for Biden people are crazy and I'm irresponsible. And God knows I'm no fan of Joe Biden, right? Or the wing of the party that he represents. And it's an odd feeling to think that on domestic policy, the left wing of the Biden administration is represented by Brian Deese and BlackRock, the asset managers. And maybe on foreign policy, the left wing of the Biden administration might be John Mearsheimer.
Yes.
But that's the reality that we have.
There's only 2 directions, and we should say, to continue that metaphor, that it is also conceivable. People should understand that you could take that authoritarian turn and actually, improve things along the lines of anti-racism, right? Like, I mean, that would be, and you could theoretically have that guy I was sitting next to. I can't, Peebles, was it Peebles or something? That guy I was sitting next to on that show.
Yep.
He could just be like, yeah, no, I mean, and I think at one point, like he started like raising money for Mitt Romney. And after Obama, after the first 4 years, because he didn't get his, it was Don Peebles. And he theoretically, he could be okay in that authoritarian turn, as opposed to the right. There's just nothing being offered on that level, on that plane of decision, essentially, that the nominal left in this country, centered to the left as we have it in this country, is offering in a concrete way. I mean, Biden seemed to make an attempt. But people could argue as to, how ambitious or how sincere it was. But Build Back Better was at least, providing some of that material support that would have gone that way. I mean, I had so much more I wanted to ask you about.
I'm sorry, like, I'm not letting us talk about the book. This is self-destructive behavior.
But I mean, I think a lot of these themes are sort of embedded in your experience of Jim Crow and the experience of Jim Crow. And we should say, I know you wrote this because you are, essentially the last cohort to have actually lived there. All right. Well, let me just ask one more question that I think will sort of like tie into this too.
Okay.
Is that you write in the book that in the course of Jim Crow, and you have this idea of like, one, obviously you want to keep Black people and white people separate because you don't want them saying like, hey, wait a second. Yeah, no, I have trouble making ends meet at the end of the month, or this is costing too much. But also that the agenda was not to keep Black people separate from the economy, but to play a specific role in that context. Will you speak to that? Because I think that sort of like bridges a little bit of what we've been saying.
Yeah. And frankly, like the view that the point of the segregationist order was to what was to exclude Blacks from the society entirely has given over the years rise to two distinct pathologies. One of them is the view. The view that the more reasonable course for advocates of black interests, concerns, whatever, through the courts would have been, instead of challenging the legality of separate but equal on 14th Amendment grounds, to focus on demanding strict enforcement of separate but equal doctrine. And I mentioned that in the book. And my point there is that, well, that just fundamentally misunderstands what the point of the regime was. Right? The point of the regime, like, separate but equal is never anything more than a fig leaf, right, to get past the 14th and 15th Amendments on paper, to give Northern liberals what would a basis for winking and nodding. The other one is that blacks should secede formally or informally from the main line of the American economy and do their own thing, basically. And that fundamentally what misunderstands that actually the point of segregation, as was the point of slavery, frankly, was not to separate black people from the economic life of the nation, but was to reduce them to a labor force that had no rights, right? Much in the same way that illegal immigration works today, right? Well, a friend of mine in the worker center movement, what was often said to white work or to American workers of whatever color, that look, it's not that the immigrants are taking your job. What's happening is that the employer is turning your job into a job that only somebody with no rights or options whatsoever would be eligible for, right? And that's what the point of the Jim Crow system was. And that was one of the, some people call it a tragedy. I don't give them that much credit, but one of the things about the Booker T. Washington line, what was that he convinced himself, and it was easy to convince himself because he got all the good stuff, that it was possible for blacks to abjure demands for citizenship rights, right? And in the interstices, create a vibrant black business class, basically. Often with fantasies of of all black towns, all black states, or whatever. But that fundamentally misunderstands the relation between politics and economics. And just as it did in 1890, it does in 2022.
It just fundamentally misunderstood the fact that, like, this is not a question of people don't want the white ruling class does not want black people around. It right. wants them around, but only to
right.
serve a very specific purpose.
Right. Exactly.
Adolph Reed, the book is called The South, Jim Crow and Its Afterlives. It is, as I have deemed it, an autoethnography.
That's a lot better than memoir, so thank you very much.
Well, I know I've heard that you don't like that. And so,
no, not at all.
But it is a view at Jim Crow from essentially the ground, and and how it created these circumstances on a daily basis to achieve a lot of the things that we've been talking about. I really appreciate you coming on today. It's a great pleasure to see you.
Oh, and yeah, likewise. I enjoyed the conversation, and thanks a lot for having me.
All right, folks. Thanks again. All right, folks. We're gonna head into the fun half. Look at that. It's like the Brady Bunch.
Now we're back.
There we go. We will put a link to that book at majority.fm and in our YouTube description and podcast description. Don Peebles, estimated net worth as of 2015. I think that's around when I went on with him. He was like listed like one of like, he was listed by like Forbes as like one of the top, I don't know, 5 or 10 black moneyed people in the country. And we really got into it. I had no idea. I was just like, what are you talking about? And then I looked up and it was just basically like the dude.
It's probably better to not know that in that conversation, because then you can have like the actual disagreement with him without being like, oh,
Right.
well, it's
Exactly.
obvious why.
Exactly. But I just I look back on that and I was like, back at that time, I wasn't getting the couple of $100 I get when I go on now. And I realized I go on this. I mean, I enjoyed it, to be honest with you. It was I think it was on Up, and they had free pastry, and I was well known for indulging in that. And people can imagine around here, right? Like I'm like sitting in front of a plate of of sugar food, and I went crazy. I got nailed eating on camera multiple times.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that's my thing.
But I realized like that dude is on there. Yeah, this is like this is about him making like money. Like it's worth it.
What
like,
he's going on cable news basically just to invest in his own his wealth growing.
To be fair, I mean it's for his kids, right? I mean, because theoretically he's dead when the estate gets passed on. But maybe it saves him some money and hassle up front, so he doesn't have to figure out a way to avoid the estate tax by putting it in some type of trust in perpetuity or whatever.
Can you imagine like getting up in arms about your kid getting like 25 mil as opposed to 30? It's like so foreign.
Their imagination fills out what that like $20 million, what you can do with that a lot more than ours does.
That's the thing. I can't even absorb like the idea of like
property.
And never mind like my kids having like they're only going to get 25 instead of 30 mil. Like I can't even even if it was just me, I wouldn't have like a concept of like I'm pissed because I only have 25 as opposed to 30.
What the estate tax kicks in of $2 million or more?
What? No, now it's like combined. I think we're still under Trump. I think it's like combined like 10 million. I mean it has been just complete. I mean I don't know how I think
Wait,
it's like
Bradley,
a combined
did you
10
find
million.
this video?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it was late December. It was December 2012. It was 10 years ago. Wow.
The estate tax is one of those policies that
it's insane.
It's like whenever conservatives they're like, why do you care so much about history? It's like because you're inheriting like the material gains from that history still. Like if we stop doing that sort of like inherited privilege, we could stop obsessing about stuff so much.
But the amazing thing was the audacity he had to make this argument that it was about Black intergenerational wealth.
Yeah.
And on some level, yes, it was.
It is certainly for him.
It was, but it was just like specifically his family's intergenerational wealth. This is, I guess I was at the conference. This is where I was at like the tort conference, and we didn't have camera at that time. And we just played the clip as I narrated it. Look how young everybody looks. Play a clip of it, see if you can land on it where it is. Not that part, but. And here it is.
The big problem is the rate of growth of healthcare costs. I think we could all agree on that, right? Now, Medicare, the rate of growth.
No, it's
in
later
Medicare
in it, I
is
think.
Significant.
I can't remember where it gets to. Whatever. People can go look it up. I mean,
where is the guy? This.
Okay, we will look at it maybe in the fun half. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of fun, we are only 5 or 6 days away now from the first live, well, they're always live, but the first live in-person Majority Report show in over 2 years. Maybe close to 3 years, actually. I can't remember, but it is in Brooklyn. It is sold out very quickly. But you can live stream it by going to Majority Live, clicking on the Brooklyn show, clicking on the buy ticket for the event, and then you can buy a ticket and watch it. It's going to be, it's turning into like a cavalcade. So it's going to be a little bit crazy, but You should check it out. And it's like $12. That's ridiculous. I wish there was a way that you could get a discount. Well, there is.
Wow.
You can get $7 off that. Maybe it's $12.50. I don't know what it is. But you can get more than 50% off by signing up for the AM Quickie. What does it cost you to sign up for the AM Quickie? Nothing. The price is you get a great email digest of the day's news, written either by Jack or Corey, switching off, every day. That's the cost. Oh my God, this is like a win. Like, I know, win, win, win. It is like a win, 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 win. Don't make me list all of them.
Win to the 10th power.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, there's still tickets left for the Boston show. I don't know if John Benjamin and Larry Murphy are going to make it to the Boston show. The Bob's Burgers movie is coming out like a week later, and there are press junkets. Why am I not invited? Because people should protest that. I am in the movie, but I only have like literally like 2 lines. It's just a complete like playing lip service to Hugo. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. But let me tell you something. When you leave that theater, the Wilbur Theater in Boston, you're not even gonna think about that Benjamin and Murphy were there. Like, I don't even care. I don't even like those guys.
Who are they?
I don't even know.
Right?
You're gonna walk out of there going like, wait, what? Who cares about that? Because of the special guest that's there.
Whew.
So
secret guest.
Secret special guest. Secret special guest. Sometimes you get guests that are so big, you can't even advertise. That's the deal. It's not the president. It's not Donald Trump. So, also justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. And lastly, it is your support that makes this show possible. Become a member today at jointhemajorityreport.com. It really is. You get the free show without the advertising. Trying to get more ads, but they've switched their advertising platform and this and that. So we got a little bit salamied on that, as it were. And you can help keep this show alive and surviving and thriving by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. In the meantime, what is happening in the Matt Leckian Media Enterprise Institute Empire
attempt? We're David Griscom and I will be back on Wednesday night. Both of us are back off our vacations now, so we'll be united. But go check out my interview with Carl Bayer on some of the thornier questions about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So patreon.com/Left-Reckoning.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow.
What? What is that going on?
It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's
talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is this?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day.
What's on your mind?
Sports.
We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go start life.
Libertarians.
They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Mac.
I'm positively quivering.
I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35. 501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You can call it satire. Sam goes to satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we seen you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. Look at me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm running around. I can't find my sound sheet. Can't find my sound sheet. Can't find it. Can't find it. Can't find it. Not here. Disappeared. Completely disappeared on me, ladies and gentlemen. So,
What?
so aggravating.
Hold on 1 second.
You'd think. I mean, I don't. I got like 18 square inches of space here, and somehow
All right, well, it's in your email.
I don't do that.
Okay.
I need paper. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows I need paper. I'm old. I don't want this is typewritten. I need a handwritten
longhand.
I can't, if it's not cursive, I can't read it. Folks, it's the fun half.
Have you written anything in cursive that wasn't your name in the last 5 years?
I will now.
Sometimes I would doodle and like write things in cursive.
I tried to write stuff in cursive, and like there's a few.
I don't
that
even think I can.
remember.
I mean, I can barely do it. Like Saul is learning cursive now, and his cursive is actually better than
Wait,
mine.
write your name out in cursive. I want to see.
Well, I just wrote, "Hello, how are you?"
My signature is just a scratch at this point.
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't that's the
attempt.
thing. I'm done too. Like I used to do like
It's pretty good.
Samuel L. C. Oh, that's a nice one.
Right?
Yeah, I used to have a thoughtful signature, and now I'm just like, this is my signature now is just like this, like just like that. And now
Yes,
everybody's
exactly.
going to
That's
copy
what my
it.
last name looks like.
Everybody's going to copy it.
That's right, it's both of ours.
That's right. Good luck. Good luck, folks. Go ahead. Sign up for whatever you want.
I do the
with that.
MATT in a way that's visible, and then I.
Can you read that?
Yeah, Sam eats poop. That's like what Saul writes. Yep. Nope. That's it. The signature is just done anyways. Like, you know, they have you sign your credit card on those pads, and it doesn't matter what
mine,
you do.
Mine is just
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um,
I remember though when I got my first debit card or something and I was a teenager, like the concept of you know, I wanted to make my signature look like a scribble because that's what adults did, and now I'm just stuck with it.
Yeah, no, I did the same thing. I'm glad because it saves a lot of time.
Kirby 4242. I probably won't be able to get out to Boston for the live show, but if you can promise me that Steven Crowder will crash it like he did with Jank, I'm sure to be there. I cannot tell you how much I fantasized that we do a live show and like one of these guys comes out and like, and I'd just be like, oh my God, I would, first off, I'm paying for your ticket. And I want to get you a drink, and we should have food. We should, we'll cater this. And, but so, yeah, people should encourage, what do you call it? What did Holly say?
Did he say with the stuff that he was saying in this tweet or no?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's do this with the tweet. Josh Hawley, as the Republicans are flailing around in which to criticize Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is going through the confirmation, I think, hearing right now.
Yep.
Josh Hawley entered in with, I've been researching the record of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson and reading her opinions, articles, and interviews and speeches. I've noticed an alarming pattern when it comes to Judge Jackson's treatment of sex offenders, especially those preying on children. And there's a series of these tweets, right? Yeah. Okay. Let me read a couple more. I know it's a long thread, but she has Judge Jackson has a pattern of letting child porn offenders off the hook for appalling crimes. Both as a judge and a policymaker, she's been advocating for it since law school. This goes beyond soft on crime. I'm concerned this is a record that endangers our children. And this
so
is
hard to figure out what he's trying to do here.
right. I mean, this is all Q stuff. Now, Ian Millhiser had a great point by point takedown of this, and I will spare all of you it. But
like one of the instances that he's referring to, I mean, was when she was on the U.S. Sentencing Commission, and she supported basically getting rid of mandatory minimums for first-time offenders who either receive or distribute child pornography, which was, I think, the same thing. So, I mean, like even the National Review came out and said that this criticism was ridiculous. Not saying that we should.
Well, that's because
they're trying to, they know it's ridiculous and they're trying to, CYA. But
it was a split decision. I mean, excuse me, a unanimous decision by a committee that has both Republicans and Democrats. And one of the Republicans on there was a judge appointed by Trump. I mean, so the idea that it was just her decision as opposed to all of these judges making it. But there are other things where he really takes stuff out of context. So he says stuff like in one tweet, he says, he quote, Judge Jackson has said that some people who possess child porn are either in this for the collection or the people who are loners and find status in their participation in the community. What community would that be? The community of child exploiters? And Ian Millhiser writes, in reality, Jackson was just asking a follow-up question to a witness who had spoken of an online community. Quote, she said, quote, I was just going to say as a follow-up to that, Ms. McCarthy, is it your experience that this category of non-sexually motivated child pornography offenders is very small because you had them broken out on your slide, the non-sexually motivated, and that I just found so interesting because I assumed that everyone who was involved in this kind of activity was sexually motivated. So the people who are in this for either the collection or the people who are loners and find status in their participation in the community, but would be categorized as non-sexually motivated, how many are we talking about? So all she was doing was literally reading back part of the presentation that she was being given by someone coming in to argue that there are different like gradations or categories of people who have this material. And she was not articulating this idea herself. She was repeating it back to the person who was presenting it. It was presumably some type of expert in this stuff. In another tweet, Hawley asserted Judge Jackson has opined that there may be a type of less serious child pornography offender whose motivation is not sexual, but is, and then like you can see in his tweet, the quotes come in at different points. So he like, whose motivation is not sexual, but is Hawley writing. Quote, is the challenge or to use the technology, end quote. A, quote, less serious, end quote, child porn offender. And then again, Millhiser writes, here she was asking a question in response to testimony that she found surprising. Quote, I was surprised at some testimony with respect to the motivations of offenders and that there are people who get involved with this kind of activity who may not be pedophiles, who may not be necessarily interested really in the child pornography, but have other motivations with respect to the use of technology and being in the group. And, you know, there are lots of reasons perhaps why people might engage in this. And
a lot of this was just an effort to update some of the sentencing given like the era of technology as well.
Well, yes, but that's not what she's asking here. She's just saying, like, I'm surprised that you're telling us that there are people who enter into these chat rooms because they're more interested in finding out the technology about the chat technology than they are, or the, encrypted technology or the anonymous technology. And then she says, and so I'm wondering whether you could say that there could be a less serious child pornography offender who is engaging in the type of conduct in the group experience level because their motivation is the challenge or to use the technology. So she's being presented with the idea that, there are green lions. And she's saying, I'm surprised to hear. And then this is where Holly takes the quote, there are green lions.
Yes.
And then she says, well, based upon the existence of green lions, are you suggesting that there are lions who are a different color than tan? And Holly said, drops the "are you suggesting" part and says, there are lions who are less, different colors than tan. And that's basically what's going on here. It is, now, I guess if you want to argue, like, this is the type of judge who's going to listen to experts to find some type of nuance in our criminal justice system, that would be, I think, like a valid.
Yeah.
It would be more. It would be less disingenuous than whatever he's engaging in.
A more
right now.
honest attack.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Josh Hawley, Ivy League educated. I can't remember which one, but he knows where to start a quote and where to end it. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Exactly what he's doing. It's unbelievable. Let's play his clip from the hearing today.
States versus Hawkins. This was a child pornography case where the defendant distributed multiple images of child porn, possessed dozens more, including videos. The federal sentencing guidelines recommended a sentence of 97 to 121 months in prison. Prosecutors recommended 24 months in prison. Judge Jackson gave the defendant 3 months in prison. United States versus Chazen. That case, the defendant possessed 48 files of child pornography. The federal guidelines recommended 78 to 97 months in prison. The prosecutor recommended the same. Judge Jackson sentenced him to 28 months. United States versus Cooper. There, the defendant possessed dozens of images of child pornography and distributed dozens of images of child pornography, possessed over 600. The federal guidelines recommended 151 to 188 months in prison. That's a long time. The prosecutor recommended 72 months. Judge Jackson gave the defendant 60 months, which was the lowest sentence permitted by the law.
Just 5 years.
United States versus Down. That's a case where the defendant distributed 33 graphic images and videos of child sexual assault to an anonymous messaging app. Unfortunately, a practice that's becoming more common. The federal
for 1 second.
guidelines
I just want to highlight the fact that his third example of her egregious sentencing is, she said 5 years instead of 6 years, what the prosecutor wanted. That's the egregiousness here.
That's that 6-year itch you got to.
By the time you get, by the time you, if you're really trying to build a case here, as Holly is, by the time you get your third example, the idea is that, like, she gave a sentence that was 12% less than what the prosecutors wanted. So
you know that none of that matters. It's all just like, he's not going to say. We're seeing this clip because it just aired, right? Cold. But I doubt he's going to bring up the Pizzagate shooter sentencing, which she was, she sentenced the Pizzagate shooter, but it's all implied. Like, this is what he's trying to drum up
her
here.
Agenda.
She's in bed with pedophiles, and the Pizzagate shooter was figuring it out, right? He was getting a little bit too close to the case. And so she was the one deployed by the Democratic pedophiles to keep this under wraps, sentence the guy. And also, this is in keeping with her pattern of not throwing the book at all pedophiles and sex offenders. That's like what he's trying to do.
Right. She's the one who sentenced the child sex offender
Yeah.
hero.
And you think that's what, like, they know that I don't, like we said, they might probably keep their powder dry and not go at her as hard as we think. But
McConnell wants to keep his powder dry.
Okay.
But this dude wants to run for president or VP.
Right. Well, I'm saying like they need something to throw to their like freaks, and it's going to be this QAnon stuff. I
Right.
feel like.
Yes, exactly.
It's interesting. It's
Continue.
okay.
Let's hear it more.
Recommended 70 to 87 months in prison. The prosecutor recommended 70 months in prison. Judge Jackson sentenced him to only 60 months. Again, that's the lowest level that was permitted by law in that case. United States versus Stewart, the defendant there distributed scores of images of children suffering sexual abuse. The guidelines recommended 97 to 121 months in prison. The prosecutor recommended 97 months in prison. Judge Jackson gave him 57 months. In United States versus Sears, the defendant distributed over 100 videos of child pornography. The guidelines recommended 97 to 121 months in prison. The prosecutor recommended 97 months in prison. Judge Jackson gave him 71 months.
Pause it for 1 second. I wonder what the defense attorney wanted to give him. Right? Like, I mean, the idea that prosecutors get exactly what they want in terms of sentencing every time is absurd. But this is what Josh Hawley's doing. And, good luck to that.
No, it fits well with his war to save masculinity, right? That he's engaging with on his podcast with his wife.
He's a good dad. He's looking out for the kids.
Yeah.
Looking out for the kids.
Soon he'll be talking about how having a woman in bed with pedophiles on the court is contributing to the feminization of America, obviously.
Obviously.
It all fits together.
Let's go to the phones. Calling from an 860 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello?
Is this me?
It is you.
Oh, hi. This is Chucky Summer from Los Angeles.
Chucky
First time,
Summer
long
from
time.
Los Angeles. First time, long time. Welcome to the program. If I could figure out a technology, like a blockchain technology that feeds on people saying, is this me? I feel like I would be so wealthy right now.
Just so you know, it's a little echoey on the phone on our end, but I'm calling to talk about redistricting, largely the cases that have been brought up recently, and wondering if you might have someone on in the future to kind of talk about it. But I'm most concerned with there was a case in Arkansas a few weeks back, Arkansas NAACP versus MRL, I believe, and the decision comes off of the Brnovich decision, which was the Arizona Voting Rights Act case from last summer. And in that case, Gorsuch and Thomas wrote a concurrence trying to ask whether or not the Voting Rights Act had a private right of action, so people could actually bring lawsuits pursuant the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And basically what the judge in the Arkansas case did was he agreed with them that there was no private right of action for Voting Rights Act cases, which basically would eliminate about 99% of voting rights litigation in the United States, and would only allow the federal government to bring action, which would mean when the GOP is in charge, they would basically, the GOP presidency or DOJ would be the only ones that could bring a voting rights case. So it would be almost impossible to get into court. And I'm wondering the long-term potential with that, along with the Alabama case, which basically said anytime a redistricting case is too close to an election, the court's not going to take any movement on it. And a Georgia case followed suit there. I'm just kind of worried that this is like a multi-pronged attack on the Voting Rights Act. And it seems very likely that the Voting Rights Act is going to be next to.
They're not going to. It's going to be a lot of this. They're just going to basically, I want to say pinprick it to death, but it's actually sort of stabbing it like 35 times. I mean, yes. And we should say, they said that with the Alabama case, but the Georgia case, they sort of like had no problem. Or was it, there was a case that came right after Alabama. Now, I think it was Georgia where they said like, no, it's okay.
Georgia,
it was just.
Yeah, they followed Alabama.
It's a joke. It's a joke. I think, and maybe we can get somebody on this. I don't know if Berman is the best guy to do it. I mean, he's an expert on these things, but I also wonder if the case regarding individual recourse under the Voting Rights Act, like they're opening up the Pandora's box, right? With this sort of like vigilante tort. I don't even know what you would call it. Like this thing that they're doing with Texas and now Idaho and in Tennessee, and we're going to see it in 15 other states. I think within
Florida just passed an abortion ban after 15 weeks.
But did they do
Idaho just did
the lawsuit thing?
I'm
I don't
not
know if they've
sure.
done that part, but yes, all the abortion bans are coming. They're going to drop it. But the other way, the effective, like sort of like the other effective way in which they will ban it is anytime you get an abortion, you can be sued. You can be sued by 10,000 anybody who participates in it. We can have the whole rapist family sue. We can have everybody sue. And I think they're probably also now like, working out sort of somebody's out there thinking like, oh, we got to have a rear guard protection for this, for things that we like, that they can't do it. Like you can't, like if I'm an individual, I can't sue someone who in any way, disenfranchises me, not just under the Voting Rights Act, but just as a matter of tort coming from a state or something like that. Although, most of the places that's happening are happening because the state legislature is inhibiting it. But we'll have somebody on talk about that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and just a general overview of redistricting, because a lot's happening.
Well,
kind of a
I can tell you that from what I've read in terms of the redistricting, between court cases that have reversed extreme redistricting and as a function of blue states engaging in their own gerrymandering and redistricting, the split is much better than people anticipated. It is still basically almost like 50-50 in terms of leaning districts in this country. There's going to be so few districts that are contested. It's going to be shocking. But on the redistricting front, it appears that it's not going to be quite as dire as people had anticipated. But that's not, I want to make this clear. That's not because we thought it was going to rain and it didn't rain. It's because people became so agitated about it and put out so many warnings that people were mobilized, A, to bring court cases, and B, to force a state like New York or Illinois to make sure that they made up for those districts that were lost in places like Texas or in Florida or North Carolina or something like that. So that's what happened.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing to keep an eye on, Florida. It looks like DeSantis is going to challenge Florida has its own fair district initiative amendments, and he's going to challenge those that they violate the Constitution.
Right.
It sounds like in the next couple of weeks.
Yep. Too many black
Fun
lawmakers.
stuff. Thank you.
I appreciate the call.
Thank you guys for everything you do. Have a good one.
Thanks so much.
Majority Report wardrobe coordinator Sam, could you ask Bradley to play the clip from Amy Coney Barrett's hearing where Josh Hawley denounces the widespread cover-ups of pedophilia in the Catholic Church, and then asks her how she could belong to such an organization? Could you bring that up, please?
I actually searched it.
Yeah, I was starting. I had Holly, Coney Barrett.
Heart rate got up there for a bit.
Faked out.
Okay. All right. Let's play this clip. This is coming out of Kentucky. This is a bill that is
it's modeled after Mississippi's law. So it's the 15-week abortion ban. It's passed in the Senate in Kentucky. It passed 31-6. 15-week abortion ban, and now it's headed to the Kentucky House of Representatives. So this went semi-viral over the weekend. I believe this is Kentucky State Senator Karen Berg. She was one of the few who voted no in the Senate on this really restrictive abortion ban because she is a radiologist and she's done work in science and medicine and actually knows what she's talking about. She made this impassioned plea in the Kentucky State House a few days ago.
Explain my no vote.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I'm a diagnostic radiologist, and diagnostic radiologists historically and in many places in this state still do all of the first trimester OB ultrasound. So I am extraordinarily personally familiar with the development of a fetus in the womb. And for you to sit here and say that at 15 weeks, a fetus has a functional heart, a 4-chamber heart that can survive on its own is fallacious. That is not true. There is no viability. You know, I look around at my colleagues on this committee. I am the only woman on this podium right now. I am the only physician sitting on this podium. This bill is a medical sham. It does not follow medicine. It does not even purport to listen to medicine. And for each and every one of my colleagues to be so willing to cast an I vote when what you are doing is putting your finger, putting your knee, putting a gun to women's heads. You are killing women because abortion will continue. Women will continue to have efficacy over their own body, whether or not you make it legal. I vote no, and I really, really apologize to the people in Kentucky that we are spending this much time and this much energy when we have families in poverty. We have single women heading households in poverty at a higher rate than any other group in the state. And you all are not addressing that. You all are making it worse. Thank you.
Republicans are like, oh, someone with science in the background who actually knows what they're talking about. All right, anyway, we'll keep going. We'll move along.
That little lady's a little bit uppity, isn't she?
Oh, yeah.
That is the point. We want to make it worse for those people.
I think she was a little hysterical there.
Excuse me, little lady. That is a feature, not a bug.
Why don't you take a Quaalude, go to bed, call us in the morning.
Doctor, heal thyself.
Well, that's, I mean, like, in all seriousness,
we're gonna see that play out in state after state in this country over the next year and a half. And that's, I mean, there is not much that can be done about these changes. I mean, and I think at one point, I mean, the real question is going to be, are they going to be successful at, as they're trying to do, I think it's in Tennessee or Idaho, I can't remember which one it is, making it illegal to go outside of the state to get an abortion.
Yeah.
And by illegal, I mean,
checkpoints.
Can we have vigilante lawsuits against people who go out of the state? And that is going to be the and at that point, it's like between the 101 and the 5, just says like, can we sue airlines for providing tickets for somebody who goes out? Can we sue an oil company for providing gas for a vehicle? What about the make of the car? I mean, if that's, I mean, if you can, I guess maybe it's these things could say just you can only sue an individual. But I mean, what if Greyhound sells a bus ticket? Can I sue Greyhound? Selling a bus ticket. You need to ask these people why they're going out of town. Return ticket that same day? That sounds a little suspicious to me.
Might just need to set up border crossings at every state.
Good point.
Check your non-abortion papers.
I mean,
are you a God-fearing Christian?
Men don't have to, but women, you got to.
Oh yeah, no, of course not.
Cross-border papers. I mean,
we don't need the papers.
I'm above suspicion here. So.
Why would we need papers? But
I have to show my papers when I enter the office. Obviously.
There you go. Of course.
Proving I'm the.
Of course.
I'm the token woman.
But this is what's going to happen, and I mean, really, it's just going to be finding organizations that are basically doing some iteration of like black market abortions or underground railroad type of situation, or, maybe you're going to have situations where people set up dummy companies to hire people, presumably for a couple of days. I mean, it's going to be,
entrapping, like it's
going to be nuts. It's going to be real.
Palantir might offer like some law firm services to track people.
There you go. I wonder if Glenn Greenwald will do the advertisement for him. Calling from a 509 area code. I know, how childish of me to bring that up. Oh, go ahead. Calling from a 509 area code.
What was that?
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
This is Ronald Reagan.
Oh, Ronald Reagan. Why do you make it like you've never called in before? You call in, do you even have clients?
Do I have clients?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand.
Wow, rude. Yeah, I have clients, and I call in once in a while, and I turn the volume down real low, and I just listen for the 509. That's how I know when to answer. Listen, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So last year, you wore a tank top and raised like tens of thousands of dollars for refugees.
That's correct.
Remember that?
I do.
All right. Now, would you agree that if somebody...
I don't know if I like where this is going.
Would you agree that if somebody knew that they had that potential and then didn't continue to take advantage of it, that in a way that would be a disservice to humanity, in a way?
I mean, I suppose. I suppose.
I grew up with this kid who was 7 feet tall, and he wanted to be a cop. Like, he should have been playing basketball. He was given a gift.
Or he could have been like a fireman and gotten cats out of trees.
PC. Yeah, anything, something, right, to do with this gift that he had been given.
Mm-hmm.
But also, tank tops are kind of like so 2001, don't you think?
I mean, probably.
You don't want to just run it back. So hear me out. Fridays, thigh days.
Thigh days. Friday
short.
thigh days. Right.
Friday thigh days. Short shorts. You get one of those standing desks.
Jean cutoff
You have
shorts.
to move things around. And you stand
like a side
behind
shot.
a side shot, rear shot. It doesn't really matter.
Rear shot.
Pioneer the
Oh,
rear
yeah.
shot in podcasting.
How about a front shot with a mirror behind, so that it's like a 2-for-1?
Yeah.
The convex mirror.
But
so it
anyways,
magnifies.
I mean,
Or a shot from below, kind of up.
I have kids, right? I have
those short
kids,
shorts.
right? I have kids.
Yeah. So.
Don't you want to create a future for your kids that's hospitable to refugees?
I mean,
Yeah. Do you know who else has kids? Refugees.
Well, yes, no, I appreciate that. I know what you're saying. I will take that under advisement. Maybe I actually feel more confident with my legs than I do with my arms. So
now we're talking.
And
Now we're talking.
but I also will say that I do not have, what is it called? Oh, Fridays are thigh days.
Mm-hmm.
Fridays, thigh days. Mm-hmm.
Which I mean, I'll be open to like nothing. There's no
half
like
measures.
calves,
No.
Calves
No.
Day, isn't it?
What are you gonna
Fridays
wear,
is
some
calves
knickers?
day. What's that?
No.
All right.
What are you gonna wear? Knickers?
What about midriff?
Some capris?
The midriff on hump
Bust
day.
out your
Yeah,
capris?
midriff. Thank you. Pass.
Ooh, midriff.
Yeah, pass on that. Yeah. I mean, let's. I'll take an advisement. I mean, I'm gonna start with the ankles, and maybe I'll work my way up and see.
Wow.
All right.
It's so disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, the
All right.
leftists can never stick to their principles on this.
He hung up.
Like you, I guess. Leftist bosses, I should say.
Nutch is best. You claim to support refugees, yet you won't embarrass yourself for us to serve that goal. Curious. Turning Points MR. Sam can wear the construction outfits Dennis Reynolds wore in Sunny. You get to put the MR pencils in the tool belt.
Good point.
Okay.
Do you know Sonny?
I don't even know. I don't know who Dennis Reynolds is. I don't know what Sonny is. I don't know any of that stuff.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I don't remember that.
Is one of the characters named Dennis Reynolds?
Dennis is one of the main 4 characters. Yeah.
I've watched a lot of episodes of that shows, but I never got the character names.
I watch it mostly just because I love and appreciate Danny DeVito with all my heart. You know, he directed Matilda. It's a great movie.
Wayne Kerr says, I did not have Raygun and Emma gaslight Sam into an OnlyFans for refugees on my 2022 bingo card.
Enough of the bingo card. That's my only critique about your. Here I am.
Calling from a 308 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from? .308.
My apologies. I did not want the loud noises to get to you. It is Kowalski from Nebraska.
Kowalski from Nebraska. Long time no talk to. What's how's the crop looking?
How's the what?
Well, I know you're going out and you're planting now.
The
but
singular crop.
But I mean, like the
crop. Oh no, we got about a month to go before that. Not actually calling in about corn or farming. I was going to call in about the inflation caller you've had, I think, like a week or so ago. I was catching up on some episodes I missed, and you had somebody call in about wood prices.
Yep.
So I looked into it, since tracking markets is what I was basically trained to do, and essentially there's been slight inflation, but nothing out of the ordinary. The big thing was disruption in distribution systems. Particularly when the pandemic initially hit, a lot of truckers didn't move a lot of lumber mills shut down. And then there's also been this massive phenomenon the last 2 years, catastrophic wildfires that have been hampering productive areas. And a lot of our foreign timber supplies were disrupted with sea trade.
Okay. So there's a lot of things, and the bug, and the beetle up in the pine up in Canada.
If you track the price fluctuations, you can actually see when they come out of dormancy, how it did actually impact it in the short term. But it doesn't really appear to be an inflationary force like whatsoever. At least nothing significant. Just thought I'd point that out to you.
Thank you.
And then I also wanted to give a quick shout out to the Discord.
Hello, Discord. MajorityDiscord.com. Over 5,000 members.
Yes, the majority Discord is great. Last night, about 24 of us or so were on periodically on a voice call where we shared art, video games, some stories, and it was frankly mostly a good time. I think it's going to become more of a regular thing over the weekends, and people should join it if you feel like talking with other people in the community.
Oh, cool. I'm trying to look up right now. All right, that's great.
We were in the Gowanus Canal channel. Also, we came to the conclusion that, Sam, we were going over the different types of males, alpha males, beta males, sigma males.
Right.
We've determined that you are a pi male. I will not explain further, and I need to go because it's about to get catastrophically loud. Good luck, everybody.
Okay, wait, what is the pi male? Well, I guess I won't know.
Means you have a weakness for sweets like pie.
I'll take that. Speaking of past calls, I think many of you remember the call that we got from the Joe Rogan fan who was arguing that a couple of things about myocarditis, that everyone who gets myocarditis goes into the hospital for it, that myocarditis is caused by the mRNA vaccine, and somebody he saw on Twitter presented that, had retweeted that thing, someone named Hogue, I don't know who that is. And so, you can go back and look at that video. I think it's titled something like Joe Rogan fan mad about the anti-vaccine or something to that effect. Got an email from listener Jay. idiot who was ranting about myocarditis caused by mRNA vaccines cited was a preprint from September 2021 that has still been over a year later, year and a half actually, still has not been accepted in a peer review journal. In other words, they submit it to the journals, they do peer review, and they say, does not meet the standards of this journal. And it also has been refuted directly by the British medical journal BMJ. He went on to say, I should say, this is a virologist. Despite the fact that the caller said, you don't have to be a doctor to get this stuff. Or he would, no, I said, are you a doctor? He said, yes. And I was like, are you a doctor? And he's like, it doesn't matter. That said, it's looking like the risk of myocarditis is diminished to baseline when the second dose, baseline being like, people get myocarditis. And the question is, does the vaccine in any way increase your chances? And it does, slightly. But he said, that said, it's looking like the risk of myocarditis is diminished to baseline when the second dose is extended from 3 or 4 weeks to 8 weeks. And which there's also a lot of data that suggests your immune response is actually better. In Britain, they had to spread it out, and they found that it was actually more effective.
Right.
Rates of myocarditis, pericarditis, were lower with extended interval greater than or equal to 8 weeks between first and second doses of an mRNA vaccine primary series. And then here's the bottom line. And this is what the British Medical Association journal BMJ wrote. That study, that preprint, never peer-reviewed, never accepted by a peer-review journal, used VAERS as its data set. VAERS is the functional equivalent of a complaint box.
Yeah. It's like saying I went on Reddit and that's what I use.
I mean, on some level, that's what it is. There's no, anybody can go on VAERS at any time and say, I had this adverse reaction to a vaccine.
And
How do I know?
It's amazing. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's amazing how many of the right-wing arguments, anti-vax arguments, rest on VAERS. And that's an automatic disqualifier, in my opinion.
Which is not to say that VAERS is not an important thing to have, because you want to find out adverse reactions to all sorts of things. And you have to start with the greatest pool of possible adverse reactions as possible. And then you weed through it over time to find out which ones are legitimate and are valid and are provable, et cetera, et cetera. The British Medical Association journal says, indeed, the CDC explicitly states that VAERS cannot be used in isolation to infer the existence, frequency, or rates of vaccine complications. In other words, just the fact that someone has put into VAERS, I got gastrointestinal problems after the vaccine. That is not enough to infer the existence, frequency, or rates of complications. You need something else. You need maybe a doctor, or maybe you need who has like some reason to believe that this is a function of that. You need to probably look at the natural baseline occurrence of gastrointestinal problems. See if it's not just a coincidence. This is raw data, really raw, not even raw data.
Yeah.
It is potentially raw data is what it is.
Because in like the midst of this, of the vaccine being at the forefront of like our national conversation, it's probably also going to increase the number of spamming and wrong.
Well, yeah. Has VAERS ever seen anything like the modern effort to vaccinate against COVID? Like,
No.
No.
So likely there's going to be a lot of people who will put in false claims just because they also don't believe in the vaccine, or they're having psychosomatic symptoms, or there's real
you feel it when you get the
symptoms.
vaccine.
Yes.
But it also could just be like somebody does have gastrointestinal problems, but it's not related to the vaccine. It just so happens
Correlation
it
and
happens.
causation, yeah.
Exactly. Greenhall said that although FDA and FDA and CDC use VAERS data to generate hypothesis-driven questions about the effect of COVID vaccines in teenagers, the agencies then investigated before concluding that these vaccines were safe. VAERS data dredging, as it is known, has been used by anti-vaccine groups in the past to produce alarmist estimates of harms from vaccines. So I guess is a scientist who studied.
That's an interesting point, though, because they act like this is, oh, we've had VAERS, and this is the first time people have pointed to VAERS as if there's something up. So, but actually, no, the anti-vaxxers have been doing this for a long time.
Almost exclusively. All right, let's go. What do we hear? Oh, yeah, this is this. As you know, in Ohio, this is going to be one of the contested seats. This is a possible pickup for Democrats here. Let's keep this in mind. Ohio could offset potential losses in the Senate and other places. It is absolutely essential for the Democrats to maintain the Senate from the perspective, at the very least, of the judges, right? I mean, Clarence Thomas gave us a possible, sort of preview as to what could happen. I mean, listen, I know it is not appropriate to say things like this. And so let me just say that I would not choose Clarence Thomas to be the next Supreme Court justice who passes away. Okay? I just want to be clear about that. It would probably be someone younger on the right, like an Alito or a Gorsuch or, any one of them. Kavanaugh, it doesn't matter.
Although in terms of odiousness from like a pure visceral level, I don't know, now that Scalia's gone, I might hate Clarence Thomas the most, but again, from a tactical perspective,
yes.
I know I'm thinking emotionally because I'm a woman, obviously,
but yeah. I'm very male. I'm what is known as a pie male. And therefore I think very strategically and look, I know people are going to get upset at my saying that, but your facts don't care about your feelings. And I am, it is a fact that, we're going to need a couple of right-wing Supreme Court justices to exit the court. Now, listen, I'm not saying that they have to pass away. That would be harsh. I think like some type of thing that happens that it makes it impossible for them to go to work.
Or just like, he has a come to Jesus moment after having a health issue and thinks he wants to spend his time on the beach with a pina colada. I would love that for Clarence Thomas.
Exactly.
And all the other.
And then he could just call in to Ginny to see how she's doing if she's ransacking the Capitol.
The Capitol,
building.
Right. Oh, what a pair.
Yep. Anyways, very important to keep the Senate. And Ohio is one potential for a pickup for the Democrats. We don't know who the Democratic nominee is going to be. Tim Ryan's running, right? And who else?
Morgan Harper.
And Morgan Harper, who is a great candidate running in the primary. Don't know, haven't seen any polling on that. But we do know in the Republican primary that J.D. Vance, hailed by folks like Peter Thiel and Glenn Greenwald. In fact, Glenn Greenwald cited J.D. Vance as an example of what happens when elitists like Matt here and Bradley and Emma and myself mock J.D. Vance. His popularity shoots up in the polls.
How much? What's shooting up?
Well, up is a relative term, and he's.
If you're upside down, it could be down.
He is down. He is way down. So that theory fell apart. But the actual race is now between Mike Gibbons, who's a businessman from Ohio, and Josh Mandel, who is a lunatic. Let's be honest. They're both lunatics. What position does Mandel have? He's like, I feel like he's state comptroller or something like that.
He was treasurer.
He was the treasurer
of
Ohio. And they both, they're at a debate, and they've got to show which one of them is the most belligerent of the two, because this is the thing that you're looking in for in a lawmaker. Which one's going to be the most belligerent? which one's the most of a lunatic, because this is a Republican primary. And so here they
Bradley's
go. They
so
go at it.
excited.
Can we hear the full audio on this? Okay, here we go. There, Gibbons is walking on there. And I feel like Gibbons is probably twice the age of Mandel, right? Do we know? Can we confirm the ages? Look that up for me.
It's like a rotunda style in the White House here too. It's nice
Yeah,
little
it's a beautiful setting for this
Near
Thunderdome.
Rumble. Yeah.
Thunderdome. Which one of these guys is going to get out of the? Here we go.
I can
You
tell
filed that with the Federal Elections Commission. You own stock in
I-
Chinese Petro.
I personally didn't buy the stock.
You made millions off it, sir.
I don't think I made millions off of anything. I'd love to have made millions off of Chinese Petro. First of all,
Shanghai Shenda and Chinese Petro.
buying a second.
Right,
You may
let's-
not understand this because you've
I
never been
understand
in
it
the.
fully.
No, you don't.
I do.
You've never been in the
I
private
understand it.
sector in your.
All right,
entire
gentlemen.
life.
I've worked, sir.
Josh, squat.
About 2 tours in Iraq. Don't tell me I haven't worked. Don't tell me I haven't worked.
You don't know squat.
It's okay, right?
You don't know squat.
It's okay.
2 tours in Iraq. Don't tell me I haven't
Back
worked.
off, buddy. You're gonna.
You back off.
Never. That'll happen.
Sit down.
Never.
Watch.
Yeah.
Watch.
We'll square it away.
Yeah.
It's a wrong dude.
No, you're dealing with the wrong guy. You watch what happens. You watch what happens. All right, guys.
I like a pause there for 1 second. I like JD Vance coming up there. I'm going to be the voice. How can I get this attention?
Yeah.
Well, I better get up and pretend like I'm going to do. Come on, man. Come on, just sit down.
Hey
Okay.
guys.
Hey
We all
guys.
know that I should be the candidate here. Peter T loves me.
Yeah, come on. How can I get into this? How can I get into this? I can't assess right now who the crowd is sympathizing with, so I wouldn't know how to intervene here. All right, but keep going. Oh, that's it.
That's it.
And
That's
what
a
is
funny mix of little attacks there, like the you invested in this attack, which is like, really? That's gonna. in
What
a
do you call him?
Republican primary?
Shanghai something?
Shanghai Shonda or something?
Yeah, don't know.
I don't know what that was. But
Try and take a page out of Trump's book there.
what is interesting though is
But
that
Trump would be like, "Yeah, I made the deal, you idiot," because I'm
Right.
a business.
No,
man."
but the guy calling him the name.
No,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
well,
I
that's
mean,
the thing. I wonder
I
if
took advantage of the Chinese.
I wonder if that is if Gibbons, I mean, if he was smarter, he would have been like, listen, I didn't make millions on that, but I made millions on other things because I'm a businessman and I know how to run this place. Now you're a good little worker. Thank you for
phone line soldier.
thank you for your service, but it's time for the big boys to take care. I mean, that's the way that that's the way he should have responded. Now, of course, I mean, it's hard for me to really assess which one of these two I want to be the nominee because I don't know which one would be worse. But I sort of feel like Mandel would be worse.
Yeah, I think so, because he's more of we know what the old businessman is.
Right.
Like Mandel's looking for some sort of identity, and he'll probably just do the teal stuff.
Probably, but I think like he just seems to be a little bit crazier. And I don't know. I can't imagine like, that would be nice to like have him go off like that in the general election. This is your senator. Come at me. Try it.
This is the
F around, see what happens.
This is the daytime TV takeover of Republican politics. We got Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, and then we got like Jerry Springer style fights happening in Ohio.
This was at a FreedomWorks sponsored event in Gahanna, Ohio. FreedomWorks, of course, formerly run by Dick Armey, and they were like, getting Koch brother funding. So that's basically it. Here is JD Vance's response. Is it just on Twitter or do we have a video? Okay, here it is. I would say Mandel is about 39 years old. I would say Gibbons, I mean, that dude has to be older than me, right? So he's going to be close to 60 at least.
He's 69 and Mandel's 39.
This is like an Alex from New York call from our Thursday calls come to life, where he gives us hypothetical matchups between right-wing politicians. But this is happening in real time.
Yeah, so before I answer that question, I just got to comment on what we just saw. Look, as the only other person who served his country in uniform, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. My mamaw had 6 grandchildren, 3 of them enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. I think the way you use the U.S. Marine Corps, Josh, is disgraceful. It's not like
Way to capitalize, JD.
about what we just saw. This guy wants to be a U.S. Senator. He's up here. Hold me back. Hold me back. I got 2 tours in the Marine Corps. What a joke. Answer the question. Stop playing around.
And there, ladies and gentlemen, pause it for 1 second. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is your ad for your Democratic nominee. This guy wants to be U.S. Senate, and he's like, hold me back, and he uses his 2 tours. And I mean, that is.
JD's got a good read of the room because I would guess if the entire electorate were to see his lame response there, he'd actually drop in Republican polling.
Like I say, though, I mean, honestly, somebody should be sending him a bread, like a muffin basket for that ad.
Yes.
That is the ad right there.
He sucks.
He doesn't have any broader sense of strategy. It seems like he just flies from one thing to another.
He just wanted to be able to announce that he also was in the uniform. But look at me. I would never get into a fight. And that's why you, sir, are at the bottom of the heap in the Ohio politics. Fantastic. I love it. Hey, you know what is really a problem in this country? It's called freedom of speech. And we don't have, there's not an opportunity to debate things. You know what I mean? You're not allowed to debate things. Even if you're in, let's say, like the Alabama legislature, where there's trying to pass another anti-CRT, critical race theory law. And it's vague. It's very vague because it allows parents to sue school systems on a vague tenet. Now, it's not like all the judges in Alabama are backwards, right wingers who have no problem with racism. I'm not saying all of them. I mean, there's a certain percentage, I'm sure that. Okay. But I mean, if I was going to bet, but here is, and I want you to just think about the deliberation that's going to go on in the passage, at least not in the full legislature, but in the Alabama State House. This is the committee that I guess maybe probably the Education Committee. I'm not sure exactly which committee it is. And they're going to ostensibly ban critical race theory. But what they're really going to ban is, why do you have to focus on this whole, like, who the slaves were? Isn't it enough to say that we had slavery because of a couple of people who wanted it, and et cetera, et cetera?
Few bad apples.
Here is that committee hearing, and you're going to hear some of the debate that goes on as they pass this bill. It's pretty intense.
Representative Pringle?
Here.
Representative Sells?
Here.
Representative Rogers? Representative Allman? Here. Representative Ball? Representative Echo?
Here.
Representative Boyd? Representative Eastbrook? Representative Hollis?
Present.
Representative Keel?
Here.
Representative Mark?
Oh, pause it. I should say, I didn't mean to lard this whole meeting up with the attendance. That's the roll call. It's not even the vote. Okay, that's just the attendance. All right, go ahead. Here.
Representative Schauber?
Present.
Representative Sahagan?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Ladies and gentlemen, before us is House Bill 312. You remember we had a public hearing on this bill. Last week we put an amendment on the bill and carried it over for a week for the members to study the bill. Is that Mr. Stadhagen?
Motion to report as amended. Second.
All in favor of the motion, give a bill favorable report as amended. Say aye.
Whoa,
All opposed?
No.
No,
Yes. Wow.
We didn't have anything to discuss with anything?
We discussed it in 2 other meetings.
Well, that was a very productive meeting. And I think it's the Government Affairs Committee. I'm not 100% sure on this, Education or Government Affairs, but they passed that very quickly.
Yeah,
And
record time.
The only 2 people who said, like, hey, shouldn't we be discussing this, were the 2 black members
Nope.
of that committee.
Yep.
And that's the thing, you got to protect free speech.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. America's, there's 2 like American traditions. One is the sort of Northeast. You have those town halls, and people go to those, and that's a very, a nice, beautiful model. And then there's also the sort of gag rule where the Senate wasn't allowed to discuss slavery for like decades, leading up to the Civil War. So
Well, you
2
don't want to be
different-
rude. You don't want to be rude. There it is. Let's go to the IMs for Resto. Emma, be careful what you wish for, because I'm sure there's a kinky weirdo out there somewhere making a picture of you being spit on now. Okay. Talia from Tampa. Hi, Sam. Emma, happy Monday. Want to give you here an update on the rent crisis down here. The People's Council of St. Petersburg is a group working to collectively bargain rates with landlords, fighting for relocation assistance. If a landlord raises rent by more than a few percent and so much more. They're doing so along the St. Petersburg Tenants Union, all to try and fight against the city council, one of whom is a literal realtor. Force them into declaring a housing emergency so we can have some kind of rent control, since rent control measures are preempted by state law. Wishing you all the best. Giving you updates soon. Thank you. Left-handed stranger. My point on Friday at the end of the show when you all read my IM was that no matter what Biden does, go to war, not go to war, and help out a little or a lot, it will all be seen as bad no matter what. Switching tactics to do what they suggest will also make zero difference. Yes. Another note, does any of y'all any farmers who call in often have good audiobooks they recommend related to climate change and farming from a scientific leftist perspective? Maybe Kowalski can tell you, go into the Discord. That is the question to ask the Discord, because I can assure you, if we do have a farmer who knows of such a thing, he is hanging in the Discord. 2 kids in a trench coat. Sam, it's my 31st birthday. I was hoping to get a shofar. Well, I don't have a shofar to give you, but I do have a shofar I can blow for you. If the Republicans believe that a viability is at 15 weeks, does that mean a woman can schedule a C-section after 15 weeks? It's an interesting question.
I don't know why women would do that, but I understand the point you're trying to make.
Not my Pope. To briefly revisit Friday's discussion, if those were indeed Dave Rubin's 2B children and not ultrasounds of dolphin fetuses, those kids are going to be so confused. Dave's going to have to come up with an answer as to why Uncle Ben and Uncle Glenn keep giving them side eye at the July 4th barbecue.
We'll probably have to save that Beck clip for.
Oh, I don't know. I think we got to do it now.
All right, well then let's do it now.
Folks, we don't have time for phone calls. Sorry.
We got something much more important.
Hey, do you remember all of a couple of days ago when Dave Rubin came out and announced that
the birds and the bees have been busy.
The birds and the bees have been busy. And he and his husband both, I guess that they had their sperm was fertilized eggs that were then implanted in 2 different surrogate women.
Yes.
Correct? And they both wanted to have their own sperm. And I'm not,
the eggs are both from the same donor as well.
Right. Okay. Right. Eggs are from the same donor. They had their own sperm. They wanted, and I don't know if they were just like gambling and seeing how many kids can we get out of this? But they got 2 coming. And, long time ago, I had said, at one point, Glenn Beck's fans are going to realize that Dave Rubin's actually married to a man. And that's going to be a problem. I never anticipated that Rubin and his husband would have 2 kids almost at the same time. And I got to tell you,
it's a lot for Glenn Beck's audience to handle.
I'm just saying, generally, I would not recommend that to anybody who wants to do a YouTube show. And certainly not if my husband or my wife was the producer and we're going to get 2 kids in one day. Forget about it. We're done. But that's not what this is about.
No.
This is about Dave Rubin's fans finding out and losing their shite. And so immediately huddle. What are we going to do? Glenn, I think you could have Dave on there and model for people how they can not watch him anymore because we have a contract with him. Here it is.
I get why the right has these, what I would argue are often legitimate fears, because the left does not stop eating civilization.
Correct.
And think about what an unfortunate position that puts us in, because then someone like me can make an announcement like this, then good, decent, thoughtful conservatives, some of faith, maybe some not of faith, whatever it is, could reach out and say, boy, this is what an interesting opportunity, and sure, it's a little different, and whatever, all the love that you and the Blaze guys and everyone else are giving me.
Oh.
And then there's this other part that's legit, which is, uh-oh, if we move the line, they're going to keep going. And I don't know what the answer to that is.
Pause it for 1 second. Wait. They are so flustered by the reaction. He's saying that conservatives, have right to, because the left is eating civilization.
Right. So they're extra touchy, or they have their defenses up, and so that's why they might be going after Dave.
Yeah, but I'm not the left, so I know how not to move the line too far. So just let me move it just a little bit and tolerate me moving it, please.
I mean, no, the idea, and for Glenn Beck's audience, that the line you want to move, like, that is eating civilization as they're concerned. Like, like Dave is just like deluding himself if he genuinely believes it.
It's mother-father fundamentalism.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. The replies.
Oh my God. The whole point why they're against two men marrying is for this very reason. They don't want, and I mean,
it's the content, not the form.
Exactly.
Right? Like
you got Laura Ingraham talking about teachers grooming.
Yeah.
The whole, in his state, the reason why, if you have kids under the, younger than 3rd grade, that you as a teacher cannot mention the fact that you are gay, is because they're afraid that you're going to get indoctrinated while at school. I mean, does Dave Rubin think that these people who watch Glenn Beck don't think that these kids are going to be indoctrinated? Oh my God, are you kidding me?
Exactly. They've set it up to where any two dads that would want to do this are basically grooming their children.
Even one dad who's going to come out and say, I'm gay, but for the sake of you children, so I don't groom you, I no longer deal with my husband anymore.
Yeah, but Dave thought he could be one of the good ones. That's what he thought he could position himself as.
That's right. And this is what I got to say.
Remember Trump? Remember what Trump said?
Yeah, remember when Trump said he didn't care?
He's like,
hey, everybody, remember?
That other daughter, I don't remember her name. She did the LGBT whatever rally, yeah?
I mean,
Tatiana?
I have some sympathy for Dave insofar as I think, maybe I'm being a little too charitable, but I think he must be having a moment where he's realizing, like, oh my God,
I've made a horrible mistake.
He's either realizing, like, oh my God, I've been absolutely wrong in every assessment I've made in most of my life, or he's thinking, like, damn it, I told you we shouldn't have kids.
Yes, I was right. I was totally
we're going to
right.
threaten my income.
He played this so wrong. If he just didn't tell anybody, he would have been fine. But he chose to.
Then he could be like apologetic about it. He could be like, we wanted kids, but I didn't want to put it forward as a model. He could have been like,
I know it's the wrong thing to do, but we did it anyways. We couldn't help ourselves.
The heart wants what it wants.
The heart wants what it wants, and I have gone to pray about it away, and now I don't know what to do. Maybe we'll put up the kids for adoption.
I wonder if we get any right-wing gay people that are gonna be like, he shouldn't. We support gay marriage, but having kids is just one stone.
I'm ready for it. You play this. Keep going.
I honestly don't, because that has nothing to do with me and how I'm going to live my life.
Go back. I want to just pick it up a little bit.
Interesting opportunity, and sure, it's a little different, and whatever, all the love that you and the Blaze guys and everyone else are giving me. And then there's this other part that's legit, which is, uh-oh, if we move the line, they're going to keep going. And I don't know what the answer to that is.
Dave.
I honestly don't, because that has nothing to do with me and how I'm going to live my life.
I think, and this is why I wanted to have you on, because I don't have an answer. I am, you know me, I am a deeply religious man, and my religion says man and a woman
into combat.
That is the basic building block of family. We're probably the clearest church on this, because it's been in our doctrine for 200
Wait, can you pause it? I'm
years.
sorry. Can you go back? You said man is the basic building block of family. I apologize. I just want to make sure I heard that right.
I think he said man and woman.
Okay, just let's see.
Also, did he join the
jacket.
French Foreign Legion? Or
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
understand what he's wearing there. He's got an American flag. So is there an American Foreign Legion?
Yeah, it looks like a yellow sort of sweater and a green polo,
And
then
also looks
he's
like
going to war.
It also looks like it was his dad's uniform because he ain't fitting in it much.
No, that's why he can't button it closed. But he does have the Glenn Greenwald style of weird colored sweater and then weird colored undershirt.
And that's why I wanted you on, Dave, because we're afraid this is going to burn down our entire enterprise here. And I have to toe the line to make it look like I am not in any way condoning this.
Yeah, I need to get some jabs in here somehow.
And I love the fact that Rubin actually thinks he can get away with saying with these people, like, I'm going to hold the line. Dude, you got married to a guy and then you took the next step, which was you're going to have kids. Like, I don't know where you pushed the line from there.
No, well, they can justify his marrying a guy being like, it's a personal choice, right? Like, but then when it comes into indoctrinating those precious children into
there's
your
gonna
lifestyle,
be, at the very least,
don't multiply.
There's going to be two kids who, at the very least, are going to buy into this idea that two men can be parents, and that's
all right.
that's
Sorry
pretty
for pausing
slippery.
it. Yeah.
Man and a woman. That is the basic building block of family. We're probably the clearest church on this because it's been in our doctrine for 200 years. So we're very clear on that. But that's marriage and relationships, and that's what I believe. But I also am. I also know God created you just like He created me, flaws and all. I believe I have a gene, they've never found it, that makes me very susceptible to alcoholism because it runs in my family. So does craziness, but it runs in my family. The same thing with things that I don't understand. And if we can't have a conversation about things that we don't necessarily understand and probably won't until we get to the other side, we have to just work it out together and be able to say, Dave, I disagree, or I don't know what the answer is, but I love you.
This is unbelievable. First off, yes, Matt made the point that Beck has compared either Rubin's being gay or Rubin's desire to be in love and be gay, or desire to frankly be loving with kids and have kids, as to be functionally as problematic as being an alcoholic. Like, you can't help it, Dave, that you've been afflicted with this. It's an affliction to him. One that is really dangerous. And actually, Beck is an alcoholic. They say in the program, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic, but he's abstaining. So why can't Dave abstain from this?
Do the Milo model. And it would be much better for Beck's business model if he did the Milo model.
Without a doubt.
Nah.
But it's also like, Beck's people also, I think, because I'm going to try and see this from everybody's perspective. Beck's people, like, the idea that he doesn't know. Well, if it's doctrine of the church, dude, it's evil. It's pure evil. And now I'm just giving the perspective of Beck's fans.
Many commenters.
And how do I know this is the perspective? Because I've read it. They've said it. They've said it over and over and over again. And am I overjoyed at this? Yeah, I am. But more importantly, I think it's fascinating. I think this is one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen.
Yes.
Because I don't think that we have a model for this. I mean, I said this the other day, Jim Baker having affairs and this and that, and that the pastor from Colorado turned out to be, hiring gay prostitutes. He resigned. He had to step down, but it was, there was also like a lot of paupers involved in this. I gotta say, Dave Rubin is the most
what, he's monogamous, it seems.
Monogamous, it seems. I'm
married.
assuming He's got no he's got, you know, as far as I can tell, no drug problems or anything like this. He's just like an average dude who got super, super, super lucky and made a living, you know, despite the fact of his limitations on the topics in which he talks about. But in terms of like the model guy that the Republicans could accept, it's him, right? Like he's wealthy, he's clean cut, he's, you know, polite, he's you know, a liberal apostate. He's completely deferential to their bigotry, and it's still not going to be enough.
Never.
And it's going to be fascinating to see how much it actually, you know, Beck is right now just thinking like, okay, I need to wall myself off from Dave in some way. I need to inoculate myself from this fallout. You know, if we have to eat Dave's contract for a couple of years, we do that, whatever. There's an escape route here.
And
but
here's why he's like an alcoholic as opposed to just, I don't know, it's like a genetic thing, like blue eyes.
I can still
Make
love
it
you.
an affliction.
I
Yeah.
can love you, Dave, even though you have a horrible illness called gayness. And
that's
you're-
why I'm benevolent,
you're
to
acting
continue
out-
to employ you.
Exactly. But if it starts to chip away at Glenn Beck, because this is a harder thing.
Glenn's got to be defining himself right now too.
It is, and the thing is that this is a harder thing to actually get out of. Like, I mean, they found out that Beck, like, you know, I had a relapse, I got drunk and this and that, and I had an affair, and I forgive me. This is something that Beck is doing in the cold light of day. Are you going to condone this or not? And if you don't condone it, how can you allow him a platform every day to spread this type of, I mean, it is fascinating. And I do have more sympathy for Rubin than I would like a Milo Yiannopoulos in this. I don't have a ton, but I do. It is fascinating.
It's like a tragedy.
It is a tragedy. It really
And I feel like, because this is obviously going to have cause tension in the relationship too, like
between him and his husband,
particularly because he works on the show. Like, it's none of this is avoidable. They have to confront this.
Yeah, but the thing, I mean, and I feel sympathy for him too, but at the same time, this isn't like a gay conservative who grew up in like a town where like he might not know any like, this is the why I left the left. This guy consciously cultivated this audience. He wanted to be in concert with these people, and these are the consequences of that choice.
That's right.
So, I mean,
but it's also the consequence of him using the fact that he was gay as a club against people. Remember what he used to say? Like, I'm for single payer health insurance. And then he realized, like, oh, wait a sec, I can't be both for a smaller government and a single payer health insurance. So he just in that, he's like, how can you say I'm not, a liberal? I'm gay. I'm married to a man, he would say. He deployed that quite a bit as a weapon. And that weapon, it's like that scene, like in like all the fight scenes in the movie, where it's like he takes the knife and he goes forward with it, and then someone grabs it and is like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And that's what's happening right now. And I'm here for it.
These are your friends, Dave. These are your buddies. These are the people.
I understand why they're upset about this. They're nervous that we're going to push the line too far and actually love our children.
What would that be?
It would be the next step on the line would be to him to groom them to be non-binary.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
If he does that, I mean, I guess we just have to guess he's been still on the left. It's all been a massive public performance art.
I cannot wait for him to show up on TYT and go, hey guys.
Actually, you were right.
Actually, Cenk will tell you I have been under deep cover on assignment for 10 years. and found out a lot of things. That the stuff that you guys say about the right is true. It is
They're
true.
a little bit bigoted, and it's good to be back.
It's good to be back.
What-
Good to be back.
Why I
Phew. Okay, guys. Oh, I can't believe it. And those suits I had to wear, and oh God. Do you remember when I said Stefan Molly knew you guys were moderates? Oh God. Oh boy. Anyways, so great to be back here. And
here's my new book, Why I Write the Right. Wait.
I was right, but I was wrong. Just
There
oh
you
my
go.
God. Oh, and folks, listen. If people are like, "Ugh, you're not going to do this," talk about Dave Rubin again.
We
gonna.
redoubled our interest.
Oh
This,
my God.
this
Are you
is
kidding?
like this is like a renewal, a resurgence of Dave Rubin content. We
Yes.
have a whole new pot of gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, was there ever a TV show everyone's like, this is over, and then it just had its like best years after that?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that happened with Ozark, and also Breaking Bad. To be honest with you, I feel like that happened.
This is the new Better Call Saul years.
Okay, that was not my fault. I just realized that the IMer said that. Okay, Country Mike, I'm a St. Paul public school teacher and a union steward for our union at SPFE 28. Day 10 of the Minneapolis teachers strike across the river. This story is even overlooked in the Twin Cities as if Minneapolis is only our problem. The impact it's having on families and the battle at hand is outsized relative to the coverage it's receiving, but their fight is our fight. Could you please find a guest and amplify voices on the front lines in Minneapolis? We emailed you 3 people to contact who can articulate the importance of this issue in this fight. All right, can we look that up? We'll get them on maybe like Friday. We'll do like a quickie. In the meantime, teachers and teaching assistants are about to miss their first paycheck. Insurance coverage runs out the 31st. They need our help to keep fighting the good fight. Solidarity from SPFE 28 to MFT 59. Here's a link to the strike fund. How do I... This computer. Will you send us an email with that strike fund thing? My browser's no longer supported. This computer's an old one. Send us a link to that strike fund. It's mft59.org/strike fund. The last IM of the day. Why does it always seem like when the study comes out, the implications that endorse conservative worldviews, the lead researcher begrudgingly asserts that the science is absolute while the study is poorly done? Militant apathy. Where are the black working class people in South Carolina throughout the South working? There is no effing black working class in the South. Where do they work? There are no unions in the South. The ones that have to exist are not exist, so not have black members. Do not have black members. What industries do black people in the South working in? This is New York BS. Doesn't work in the South. In the South, if you either work for the government, in education, in retail, medicine, or corporate America. Where are the blue-collar black workers? Hence the reason that blue-collar is absolutely synonymous with race. We should look into that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting theory. I don't know if that's the case.
My suspicion is it's not the case.
I find it hard to believe.
Yeah.
West Coast, Worcester. Hey, crew, just helped my son move to Worcester. Never been on the East Coast and was worried how the change would be. People couldn't be nicer. Trying to convince him to make it into the Wilbur in May. Please give him a shofar. Wish him luck. It's hard to have him so far from home. Rest in peace, Michael. You're like, what college could that kid be going to? It could be Clark. Could be Holy Cross, could be WPI, could be BACA, could be Assumption. Worcester has like 9 colleges. Yep. North Dakota, Dave's solution is clear. To get his fans off his back, he must convert to Christianity. Yep.
Bessemer, Alabama, the location of the current strikes is 72% black. So I don't know what that IM is even notioning towards.
Oh, yeah, Bessemer, Alabama, right?
Yeah, there's a long history of organized black folks labor in.
We did an interview and somebody wrote the book about
Ho.
communists.
Yeah,
Hammer, yeah, exactly.
Robin Kelly. So I'm like, I don't understand, and I frankly defer to Adolph Reed on the class makeup of the South.
I feel like you would double check that.
Yeah.
North Dakota Llama. Matt Walsh went off on Twitter against Mark Dice about Dave Rubin's surrogacy. So Matt thinks it's okay for a 12-year-old to carry the term, a thing he literally said, but draws the line at a grown woman bearing a child for a gay couple. So wait, he went off against Mark Dice? So Walsh is against it. I don't know the players in this, but we should look into this. Tojo's bald head. Oh my God, it's almost 3. Love Adolph Reed, R.I.P. Scott Hall. Most pedophiles are conservative. I don't know if that's true. Mass Baby. If the guest is James Adomian as Bernie Sanders, I'm switching to Door. Can we see the Peebles footage somewhere? Yeah, it's we'll put a link to it on our homepage. New Wrangler. I guess Emma just revealed that secret. It's eating poop. Okay.
Sorry, I was the one who said eating poop. I made it vulgar today.
Demian. Was the last live show the one where Benjamin drew on his hair like Stephen Miller? So awesome. Kid tested Politburo. Special guest must be Darlene Rudin. That would be a good idea. Scary audio. Sam, we are drifting through the void, cold and alone, with no company but the reverberating audio on the hold line. We fixed it. Sam from Ottawa, how is that Holly statement not slander? It's patently false.
Yeah.
Future in doubt. It's a public figure. I have a question for my favorite ag reporter from the 308. I hear people on the left talk about using hemp oil to replace some or all of diesel fuel and started to wonder if this is actually feasible. Can we grow enough hemp and process enough to do it? Are there farmers that are interested in growing hemp? Would love to hear Kowalski's take. Casey Answer. Any thoughts on Deshaun Watson going to Cleveland Browns? Seems so scummy. 22 accusations is not enough to keep him out of the league. Well,
he's out. He was out of the league for a year. So I mean, like I hear what you're saying, but that's going to be served as like a de facto suspension, and from a football perspective, that's huge for the Browns. Huge. He's a top 5 quarterback in the league.
Hinkle Dinkle. Sam, glad to share that I have seen Jason Hinkle fanatics discuss how they bought a few tickets to the live show. You won't need to fantasize. They're incoming. I am so looking forward.
That's awesome.
Oh my God. Let's go.
Thanks for the money.
Fantastic. Joe Bucky yourself. Samantha Cider Thigh Days. Side views, back views. Hillface. I'm pretty sure I get more myocarditis from too much coffee than my vaccines. What a bunch of babies.
Oh my God, that anxiety when you know you've had too much coffee and your heart starts beating too bad.
But I think like the myocarditis thing, like just real quick, like it'd be nice. Like I think like we should understand it as something that happens kind of regularly, but also something that is another case for say Medicare for all and how we should all be cared for a lot more and be like even after colds and stuff like that, we should be able to go to a doctor and like make sure nothing has happened.
Yep. Nookie, this is pretty good. Nookie I is best. I get it, Dave. You're addicted to your husband's D like my family is to alcoholism. This is classic hate the sin, love the sinner BS that Christians push, and it basically pushes their bigotry onto something about the person that they think is a choice and tries to separate it from the person.
And makes themselves out to be benevolent when they're actually being that's maybe the part of it that makes me the most mad. It's self-aggrandizing and it's disgusting.
The problem is that if you hate any part of a person, you kind of hate them, which is what these Christians can't contend with for fear of actually having to make their religious views more nuanced. Adding nuance destroys most of the reasons to be this extreme in the first place. The revulsion these people have towards LGBT people should be treated like the childish impulse it is, and they should not be considered principled in any way for holding views that cause them to hate other human beings for unharmful behavior. Religion is just a useful tool for enacting that hatred and justifying it. And I would add, I think Glenn can get away with, hate the sin, love the sinner. But I don't know if you can get away with hate the sin and finance the sinner so they can afford to raise these children.
And do segments about it on your network.
I know it.
It'd be a don't ask, don't tell sort of thing.
Freudian slip slide. Dave may ask himself, am I right? Am I wrong? And Dave might say to himself, my God, what have I done? You know what that's from, right? Talking Heads.
Yeah.
Dave from Jamaica. I'm always amazed at Dave Rubin. I always thought he would pull a reformed gay person routine, but he is marriage of stupidity and cynicism. I can't wrap my mind around. How did he not see this reaction coming? Yeah, I know. In some ways, I do admire him for having that much obliviousness.
Yeah, but a wounded gazelle is liable to run in all sorts of directions, and this is the direction he ran.
I love that.
We're doing the final one.
This is the final I am of the day. This is
just checking.
This is how Emma gets trained in that seat, is the just the complete side eye and now building anger.
Yeah,
coming.
right.
You need to do the Michael sigh.
What's up?
All I do is
I thought my mic was muted.
I didn't know. I didn't know.
I find as a woman that passive aggression works a bit better for me.
Michael found it pretty effective too.
Yeah, but I'm even more subtle.
That's just a matter of time. Wait till we get to 3:15. Mark Monkey.
3:15.
Mark.
Did
Monkey.
you go that late with him one time? All the time. Great.
We did some. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is not the first time this has happened.
No. Oh my God. I've been more disciplined actually in the past year or two. Yeah.
I'm just hungry.
Well, the
That's
Peacock
all.
show was actually nice little.
If we could have a 5-minute
Peacock
break.
show was a nice little cudgel to get you guys on.
Yeah,
on time.
that's right.
If we could have a
When
5-minute
I had the
break
second
at
show,
like
I had to do
2,
it.
I'd be able to go longer. And if I could have a sandwich. But this is what that's what kills me.
Wait till you see we would do the did we do a 12-hour show recently?
Like in the past 5 years.
Didn't I do 12-hour on our anniversary show?
I mean, my second day on the job, we did like a 12-hour show, just you and me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're
But
doing
we drank
24
it for that, so
we're doing 24 at one point. I'm gonna do it. Mark Monkey. A very interesting thing about the right-wing reaction to Rubin's kid is if you dig into the comments, there's a lot of references to Dave being Jewish too. Yes. Weird how the supposed more tolerant side isn't tolerant at all. If only someone had warned him. Oh, wait.
We tried.
All right, folks. Matt, Bradley, Emma, I know you could do this all day. Great job today. See you folks tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie ball, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the